Education work session meeting at 7 o'clock on August 27th. I'm calling this meeting to order. And I will now read the public charge. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruption of this meeting. We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. So we're following our agenda, and you see recognitions. We don't have recognitions during work session meetings. However, I'm going to take liberty. I'm going to do one. Thank you. So this recognition goes to Dr. Stephen Stanback.
Oh, almighty.
No, I'm just Brenda.
I'm making a religious statement.
I know most people do.
I'm not saying that you're God.
Most people do. But anyway, present it to Dr. Stephen Halkiotis in appreciation of your dedicated service with the Orange County Board of Education as chair, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2017, and 2018.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sweet.
Oh.
And I've got before and after pictures. My hair was much darker before. So we're going to watch you, Brenda.
Yeah, well, I
Thank
have
you very much.
Hair coloring.
That was very
mechanism.
thoughtful, very nice.
All right, so we will adopt the agenda, the revised agenda. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Second. We have a question or discussion or whatever.
So I do have at least one item to pull from the
That's
consent
fine.
agenda.
All right, what item, sir?
The meeting minutes for some additions.
All right.
And just wanted to also state for those here in attendance that for the after-school personnel files, the intention of the board is to not release any Orange County files except for those for after school.
All right. So let's, can we address, all right, so we pull those. So all in favor of adopting this agenda with these items pulled, let it be known by the side of aye.
Aye.
And opposed have the same right. So let's deal with the minutes.
All right. So for item 11B, on the modernteacher.com, the addition of with regular updates to the board on progress is the item I believe needs to be added for that one. Okay. And then any discussion on that?
No, we're
okay,
good with it.
Good. The second one is the last item right before adjournment. We did have, there was an action item that I took, Will, to write up something up to send out on CTE committee, and I just wanted to add that.
All right, that's good. That was a good catch. Yeah, is that all that you have?
That is it.
All right, thank you. So next, moving along with the,
do we need to motion to approve?
we need approve the minutes
The
that
minutes.
he changed them. That's right.
Yes.
So moved with the changes.
Second.
Second, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So adopted. I appreciate it. So, consent agenda passed.
No, we still didn't approve the consent agenda. We just pulled that one item and approved.
We pulled two items.
Yeah, well, no, the
No,
other one, he
one.
just made a comment
Made a
on.
comment?
Yes.
So at this
All
point,
right,
we
we're
would.
gonna approve the, do I have a,
Motion to approve the other remaining items.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? So recorded. Thank you. So now we're moving on with our agenda. And we're not going to, staff, we're not gonna call, Todd's not gonna call people up. If you're up, just come up. So we're gonna save a little time. I mean, Mr. Superintendent.
Time is fine.
Not the word.
Hey, how are
Hi.
you? Get this thing up and running. I'll get started.
Yes, let's
Good
get
evening.
started.
I'll go ahead and introduce some folks here this evening. We're here to present the classroom edition, the design development for Cedar Ridge High School. I have with us this evening a few folks from Corley Redfoot Architects. You've seen them in the district before. They've done great work over the years, and I don't want to forget to mention, but they were the original designer for the Cedar Ridge High School master plan and wonderful building and campus that we have. They also were the designer of the auxiliary gym that was built a year and a half ago. And we have with us Mr. Ken Redfoot, Mr. David Taylor, and then from Reese Nolan McElroy, who does our mechanical contracting, Mr. Steve Kaufman. So with that, we wanted to jump in and just give a little brief history about the process that we've been in. This is a classroom addition, approximately 50,000 square feet for Cedar Ridge High School. The problem is we are over capacity at the building. The core capacity when the school was designed was for 1,000 students. During the last school year, we served approximately 1,150 students on the campus. We have been over capacity for the last several years. Anytime we're over 100% capacity in the building, it does cause for concern. And so this original plan, when the school was designed, the master plan called for a classroom addition. It also called for a future design of auxiliary gym. The auxiliary gym was completed, and we're at the time now that we do have the funding, thanks to the education bond, the support of the county commissioners, the school board, and the citizens of Orange County, where we can put forward a plan in order to bring the classroom addition online. This is representative of what we call the design bid build process. When we're doing large-scale construction processes, you will see us use this method over and over again. First phase is we do an RFQ, or request for qualifications, from a designer, architect, engineer in order to do design services, professional services. There's a process of qualifications that we look at, and we actually did interviews, and Corley Redfoot was our selection for designing both the auxiliary gym and the classroom addition. Then we brought that before the board. The board approved a contract with Corley Redfoot. The second part of the phase then is your design phase. That's the phase we're in now. We're bringing back to you this evening renditions of the design and the work that's been done to bring us to this point in time. And then the third phase of the project would be, we put the design out for bid, we receive construction bids, and we bring back to the board the lowest reasonable responsible bidder for consideration. Then we would sign contracts for construction. So you can see it's a lengthy process. Sometimes we're asked, why hasn't this been completed, or why isn't this immediate? And there are several steps, very important steps and critical steps in this design build process. This is an approximately $14 million addition and project for the school, so there's many steps to be accomplished. And I will turn it over at this point in time to Corley Redfoot, who's going to kind of walk us through the design process and how we ended up here this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Patrick. We must say that we really appreciate your trust in us in completing this project. It's thrilling for us to come back. The original building was completed in 2002, and here we are after the auxiliary gym and completing the entire project to bring you up to a 1,500 student capacity. So something that was planned a long time ago is now being implemented and brought into proper occupancy in your school system. So we're really thankful for being a part of that. The design process on this slide, it goes through a couple of things that we did. We don't design these things in a vacuum. Fortunately, we have really excellent administrative staff. We had teachers involved from the schools. And the case studies that we did, I'll just point out a few things. We visited Alamance, CTEC, which is their center over in Alamance, to kind of take a look at some of the innovative use of space over there. We went to Apex Friendship High School. The Hunt Library is an interesting project because of some of the learning commons and some of the spatial considerations in that building. It's quite unique. And then, of course, we did a whole host of web searches and looked at books to give us ideas for research of innovative schools. Design meetings included, as I mentioned, the Cedar Ridge administration, Cedar Ridge teachers. There were at least 4 to 6 teachers in all of our meetings, and we got plenty of really good feedback about the new facility. We also had senior staff. Patrick, of course, was there. We also had maintenance staff. Roger and some of his folks sat in on the project. So we were very cognizant of the need to address those considerations as well. Design options were presented. The first options that we presented were 2 schemes. One was sort of an outward focused scheme with a lot of glass and a lot of courtyard space. But the other scheme, which is the one that we're going to show you tonight, was more inward focused because there was a definite consideration of the safety and security of the students in the overall final design. So the next slide. The goals, which we've already stated, of course, were to have 1,500 students in this facility. Already having a 1,500 student core, it became an issue of how to address the remaining students. We will be meeting the NC DPI and Orange County School Facility Standards. We'll have 24 teaching stations. We'll also have small meeting rooms and a lot of flexibility in the plan, which we'll show you in more detail. Words don't do justice to what we'll be showing you. Flexibility, one of the mandates in a lot of new projects is to really grab a hold of the 21st century educational ideas that are out there, and your group of folks that sat in with us were all about that. Flexibility was one of the key components, is to not really just get into a classroom with a straight-on lecture kind of. It's more open, more collaborative. There's a strong use of technology. Student-centered, teacher-supportive was one of the things that we took away from those meetings. Project-based learning and sustainability are key components as well. And you'll see in the next slides, the image of the school is basically, we made it very compatible to the existing building, and we have a clear connection from the existing building over, which actually enhances security, we think. Yeah, let's go through these quickly.
Okay.
These are basically just some photographs of miscellaneous schools. These aren't your school yet because yours isn't built, but these are photographs of kind of the way that things are setting up in terms of furnishings and these spaces that are collaborative in nature. Go ahead. You can see on the, I guess it would be your left, the large white boards. On the right, high, where you have different teaching focuses around the room, not just a central focus kind of classroom. These are CTE areas from these pictures, but they show the diversity of use in the space with a lot of electricity and a lot of capability for technology. The overall campus plan, I'm talking really fast. If you have any questions, please jump in and interrupt me.
So can you tell us a little bit about the technology part? I saw it listed, but it's not obvious from the picture what technologies y'all are planning to enable.
Well, what we're gonna, do you wanna go take it?
Yeah, so part of that's a great question. So part of the process is setting up opportunities for learning, because technology is going to come in 2 phases. One would be embedded technology that's designed when the school was built. Those would be your typical, what you would see design, and then the flexible design with technology. You'll see more of that when we get into collaborative spaces. what some thoughts are as far as student-centered technology. Can you maybe give me a little more information? Are you talking student-centered, hardware-centered, safety-centered?
So technology has such a broad meaning,
Correct.
and I'm trying to understand how y'all are using it, whether it's, hey, we're gonna be efficient by having the lights go to 1/3 power when nobody's in the room, and when people walk in, we're gonna turn them on as they walk in. Is it, hey, we're gonna have the ability to have sensors in the room so things start powering up like whiteboards and things? I'm just trying to figure out, when you say technology, what is that?
So
that
here
mean?
we're talking about student-centered 21st century technology outlets so they can plug in connectivity to TV screens or being able to project what they're working on or working together with project. As far as standards for construction, as far as this is not an LED or LEED certified building, it's not, there will be some components of smart things we'll do that you've mentioned, but here we're referencing student-centered technology.
Okay, the daytime.
Well, I want to pick up where Will just dropped off. Recently, you made a comment that it's impossible for public school systems to keep up with the private sector that you work for.
Yes.
With respect to technology advancements, which change every 18 months.
So let me stop you there. I'll give you an example of one. As soon as he said plug in, I was like, well, we've missed it.
Well,
Nobody plugs in anymore.
Okay, see,
so
this is what,
it's too-
well, this is why I'm following up with what you
Maybe
just
in
asked.
charge. Yeah, we're talking
Well, you don't
about,
even have to do that anymore. I mean, it's.
So, no, wait, it's my turn.
Sorry.
I'm making a statement. Thank you, Madam Chair. Because I also remember something that Todd Jones said a couple of weeks ago, and correct me if I'm mistaken, but I do listen when staff speaks, and I absorb it, and I work it inside my head, that you're phasing out all the whiteboards in the schools, are you not? The smart boards? The smart boards.
No, but we're looking at replacing some of the smart.
Well, you're looking at replacing them, so we're talking change. So I wanna make sure that whatever we're talking about from the architectural point of view jives with everything from Clorox, our TP, North American Operations, that Mr. Atherton works for. He is probably the most tech-savvy person in this, I would say, on the school board. That's a safe statement to make. That's his livelihood. He understands that world. And I have to listen to what he says, and I also listen to what Todd Jones says. So if somebody has concerns about people still plugging in, and these guys are saying you don't necessarily have to plug in anymore, I just wanna make sure we're not designing a cow that's all worn out, can't give any more milk, for what that's worth.
Yeah, the only thing.
that's a good reference to technology right there.
The only thing I would
It's something
say
he
is that
understands.
a lot of the connection technologies that are in next generation things are hypersonic, right? So if you're gonna go up to a monitor and use it, you use hypersonic on your system, you don't actually use HDMI or, you don't wanna touch that stuff with your hands anymore apparently. But a lot of it is just completely wireless, and therefore you don't have the teachers trying to figure out what's going on. But it's a fair point, but those things are not necessarily building related, so I'm
Well,
trying
the
to
only thing
keep
that
that
we do,
perspective.
can I just answer you just for a second? Part of what our job is to listen to folks like you, and also, but to also create the infrastructure of, perhaps there will be data outlets in certain locations, or specifically electrical outlets for charging or whatever, but we need to make sure they're in the right place so that hopefully they will be compatible with the technology of the future. It's hard to look into a crystal ball to know what's coming down the road, but we try as designers to provide the infrastructure so that that can still happen in the future.
I would say the one item that, especially in the commons area, that in industry we see a huge benefit for is white noise generators. I mean, it's not, and not the ones you set on a desk, the ones that are in the ceiling that point down. And those are very valuable, especially when you're talking about student-centric. In our environment, we have small teams in a large area, and that sound, just with us talking here, you know, obviously propagates, but having white noise generators in those larger areas where you wanna do separate items is a huge benefit, and it's reduces the disruption. Anyway.
That's
Right.
good.
Thank you.
So what you're looking at is the campus plan, the overall campus plan, which I believe everyone is quite familiar with. You could see, basically, due north, the existing plan, and number 10, if you can see number 10, that's actually the new classroom addition. Along with building the classroom addition, which is approximately 50,000 square feet, there's an added component of staff parking and student parking, so that we're not only, and those were also planned very carefully as part of the overall master plan. So, this is actually a 3D view of your facility, pretty much the existing conditions. You can see off to the left is the auxiliary gym up there, just in, you know, right beside the stadium. And you can see the places where we're going to be putting the addition and the parking, and now you'll see them. There they are. So there's the addition, the two-story addition, parking complement in the front filled out, and also the student parking filled out.
Can I ask sort of a silly question about this? So
Sure.
the capacity right now is 1,000 students. We're adding 500, yet that looks like a much smaller building to me than the other building.
Well, the core areas of the existing building remain the same. The cafeteria, athletic, cultural arts, because they were all designed for 1,500 right out of the
That's right.
box.
Okay.
The only thing that was not up to 1,000, or it was only designed for 1,000 students in the initial building, were the academic classrooms.
Okay, great.
And so that's why it looks significantly smaller.
Great, thank you.
So now we're going to show you a couple aerial views of the exterior of the building. This is basically to show you how we responded in terms of the appearance of the building. We didn't want to have this building stand out like, you know, as any different in terms of material and overall appearance, especially with a metal roof. We're continuing with a metal roof to keep the whole thing as compatible and unified as possible. Another shot is pretty much showing you the same thing. The use of plenty of windows on the outside of the building. And go ahead. This one kind of shows you a view from the front sidewalk, walking along the sidewalk as you're turning the corner to go to the student parking area. You can see that there's a raised section in the new building. That is a clear story of glass that actually that natural light comes in on all sides. That's a very important component of the learning commons, which we'll be getting into very shortly. Natural light is a very compelling thing to happen in these buildings for students and teachers. This is the overall plan showing the existing plan, and you can see in the dashed red lines, in combination, the dashed red lines are the new building, two-story building, and then also the connector. It shows how it actually jives right into the existing corridor. There's existing utility piping there. It was all planned ahead of time back in 2002 for this good day and this good outcome. The key to this project is really the learning commons, because that sort of is in the center of the space. It has natural light from above, and we collected basically a flexible size array of classrooms around that learning commons. This was something that all of the folks that we talked to really liked this idea, because it allowed for a lot of collaborative and impromptu type of relationships between students and teachers. And you can see the classrooms that rotate, that actually wrap around the learning commons. On the right-hand side, you see two large lab areas. To highlight the use of flexibility, it was important that there be a movable wall between those two lab spaces, so that it could be opened up so you could have a larger lab, which is something that is not possible in the present configuration. So that was something that the science folks thought would be an amazing kind of activity, to open that up, get a larger group, maybe even break it down into smaller groups. But these larger spaces that can be subdivided into smaller spaces pick up on the idea of flexibility. On the left-hand side, I just want to highlight that the 3 classrooms that are kind of in the center, the 2 on the outside are basically the same size. They're pretty much a uniform 850 square feet. The 3 classrooms that we're trying to point out for you, those 3, yeah, those are all similarly sized, but they also have demountable partitions or movable partitions between them. The concept there is that you could have all of those spaces individually, you could have 2 spaces, or you could have 3 spaces. And the 3 spaces allow for a large open area, and one of the advantages of that the teachers thought would be great would be for testing. It ends up that testing is a very important aspect in the school, and we're allowing that to happen in this space in a good way in contrast to the way it's done now. So we've benefited by their input in things in the nature of flexibility and accomplishing certain things. The upper level, again, is classrooms basically surrounding the learning commons. Of course, we have all the complements of the support areas. We have planning for teachers, we have meeting areas, we have conference rooms, we have, of course, men's and women's toilets. We also have an elevator in this building, which really is going to make it a strong connection between floors. The elevator also goes up to the mechanical platform so that to maintain the machines that are in the attic level above, the actual maintenance folks don't have to go into any of the classrooms to actually change filters. It's all done in the attic above. Now we get into learning commons, and there's some highlights to this. The Hunt Library shows one example of it. It's really yellow. But it's quite compelling. You know, you can see where the students, you know, have a place to sit and have a place to gather. And that's the idea. It's the community and collaboration of these types of spaces. The flexibility that actually comes from having a lot of different spaces that gather around a place like this. Circulation is, you know, pretty much self-evident when you walk into the space and you go around. You can walk around the learning commons. You could actually use the learning commons as a way to access the upper or lower level. And then coming right from the safety and security aspects was that first inkling of what do we emphasize, an outward focused or an inward focus? And we just all felt that the inward focus was the way to go. Now, in your packet, we have these 4 renderings. And the reason I'm showing these as one slide is because we've been working and we've been advancing the design with more detail and more thought, and also with more of a budget in mind. And so we want to present a different concept to you. It's the same space, it just has different use of materials and probably a little bit more realistic in a way. So this is the learning commons that we would propose. It would be, you know, a light in color. It would be utilizing wood, but that lightness, I think, versus the first drawings that you showed, which was sort of a dark kind of thing. We wanted to emphasize the light quality, and also have a strong connection between the upper and lower floors with a really good way of the students perching to watch and participate in the learning commons. This is actually a view from the top of the learning commons, looking down the cascading steps to a array of monitors that are set up there, which shows the, I guess, if we get back into shooting rockets, that would be a place that I'll go gather and watch that. Also, David Taylor created that formula on the lower, below the monitor. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
and it's very important. We don't know what it is.
It was the idea of potential of probably a writable wall in that whole distance of about 20-some feet would be a writable wall surface, and could be that way multiple teachers could use it, set up for classes. You know, it would give you a lot of flexibility.
Right.
Going on a writable wall
that if you go back to page 18, the previous slide, where the students are standing there, that's an excellent place for a rideable wall.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great idea.
That's a very good idea.
I think the more we enliven
On
that
both
space.
sides, yeah.
Yes.
That's just a small piece that come up and have a.
And so you can see in this slide too, that on the second level, there is basically the hallway goes all the way around it. And in the next slide, you'll see that there are opportunities for that to become a very positive space in terms of students using that space, having a perch to look down, but also to feel that they can just gather out there. And this would be where that white noise generator could be very helpful.
And power outlets for this.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's why the wall is actually solid to the top, and then we have just the railing going around. We didn't want to have just an open railing because we know that the electrical outlets are critically important.
In one of the pieces of feedback from the teachers, you'll see lots of glass on the classrooms facing into the corridor. Both was from a light standpoint, but also so students could flow in or out of the classroom, working on projects. Small groups of students could go out in the hallway, work together, but the teachers still maintain visual contact to the students in the commons on the second floor.
So that's basically the end of the architectural presentation. So we're here to answer any questions or receive input.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm wondering, I think so much of this is really, really exciting and beautiful, so congratulations.
Thank
there
you.
are two things that I'm wondering about. One is the sort of noise level of such a big open space, especially if you think about, you know, glass walls, you know, it facing that, or the room dividers. I've been in conference rooms where like you can totally hear the conversation on the other side. There seems like there could be some sound issues, so I'd love to know like how you're thinking about that. And the second is, I'm curious if you thought at all about gender neutral bathrooms rather than a men's room and a women's room.
There actually is a, let's go back to, right next to the elevator, is there, okay, that's right, I forgot to use this. Just up from the elevator, the E right there, there are two small single toilet restrooms right there. And one, they could be teacher staff toilets, but the idea was that there could be a gender neutral toilet in there as well. And that's really more of an administrative issue than it is for an architectural issue. But we do have two restrooms on the second floor. The first floor, there's only one single toilet because the elevator equipment room takes up the space of the other toilet room. But there is an opportunity for a universal toilet, at least on the second floor, and perhaps a shared toilet with staff on the first floor.
We did the same thing with the auxiliary gym design. We have team rooms. We don't have designated men's, women's, boys, or girls locker rooms. They're just team rooms. Same thing with the restrooms. They're not designated restrooms in the auxiliary.
They are simply toilet rooms.
They're just simply two restrooms.
Okay. And then, so does that take up additional space? Like, if these men's and women's restrooms here, like if you just converted them, obviously you would like design it differently than this, but in the places where I've seen it, you know, it's like door, sort of on a hallway rather than an inside of a room.
The trouble with that is right now, this, with the number of classrooms that we have in this building, the code will tell you that there will be roughly, I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's somewhere in the 500 to 600 range. By code, we need 8 flushing fixtures for men and 8 flushing fixtures for women, just to satisfy the code. And so the men's and women's rooms that you see there have those 8 flushing fixtures in a group situation. We tried to address the single toilets just on the other side of the hallway. But to do that as 8 single toilets would take up a tremendous amount of space. Plus you'd have to get access off the corridor for all these different rooms. So,
you know, it's doable. It depends on how committed we all are to doing that.
yeah.
The plan, we're here tonight to receive input from you. So if it's the board's desire to actually have that done, then, you know, we could study that. It may mean the loss of a classroom or some portion of a class. I mean, it's a certain amount of space that we have that fits in a certain budget, and we have an opportunity to actually sort of work through that with you tonight.
Hillary has a point.
So you said that you need to have 8 for men and 8 for women, but if they were gender neutral, wouldn't that therefore be you only needed 8, because then you'd have.
No, the code, unfortunately, it's the number of fixtures. You could
So
do
you
that,
need
but you'd still
16
need
fixtures.
16, yeah, it's
So
the
you-
number of fixtures.
That would need to be 14 bathrooms. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The code just hasn't kept up with societal
That's
considerations.
It
Did
caught
you
up with,
guys
it caught
do
up
it-
with the need for women's toilets, but it hasn't caught up with the other toilets.
Yeah, well, that's true, because historically, it was a lower number for
Yeah.
women, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, my other question is this, because the noise issue becomes significant. After I left Orange High School, it was a noisy building for many years, because it didn't have any of those sound dampening acoustical panels that are suspended in the main lobby. Did you guys design those panels in the main lobby?
No.
You didn't?
No.
I don't know who did them. They were after my time, maybe before your time, Patrick. But they have gone significantly forward in dampening that noise. I think, Jason, were you there when that happened?
Before me.
You were, okay. Those kinds of panels, I think, would be critically important in that commons area.
Yes.
Now, one thing about the commons area that I really like, you know, when we initially talked with you fellas several years ago, referenced the connector piece at Orange High School.
Yes.
Originally, it was gonna be an open, covered shelter, and finally we decided to spend a little bit more money and then close it
Yes.
and turn it into a commons area.
Yes.
The kids have really enjoyed that. They
Okay.
really take advantage of it. Before school, after school, change of classes. So the commons thing is what kids like. So what's the proposed seating capacity there for normally sized teenagers?
Approximately 150.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
So
And
if you
I-
take a large,
Yeah, and I
large
like,
club.
I like the light shades. I think the lightness and brightness is so nice.
Yeah.
And natural light, I think if people had more natural light than man-made light, or people-made light, I think they'd behave a lot
Can I
better
address
too.
one other quick question regarding acoustics? Though we're showing wood panels in a lot of places, we are looking at micro-perforated wood panels that have an acoustical property to them, that will be used, yeah, because we know that that will be a very boomy place if not untreated. So we are looking into how we can treat that acoustically and make sure that it's not too noisy.
Yes, Will?
So, I did see in the notes, y'all had discussed the geothermal design versus the standard design.
Yes.
That's the
And-
next part of the presentation.
Oh, should I wait?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait on that then.
All right.
So the other question I had was, and maybe this should be a different meeting, is some of the security and safety features that will be in this building from the standpoint for teachers and staff that maybe we don't have in other buildings, but now that we're building one, that we can leverage those. And again, I think that's probably in a different meeting, but that's one I would like to understand from the capabilities.
Be good to refrain from any super specifics when it
Right.
comes to security.
Can't say-
Right, that's why I
Yeah, you
said-
can't do
Understood.
that.
Yeah.
Open session.
Right.
All right.
So the second part of this process was to not only look at the design of the building, we have a current 4-pipe system that was designed at Cedar Ridge High School, and it's set with the design to add on the addition, but to look at geothermal and to see if geothermal was an option, and I'll let Mr. Kaufman walk us through his analysis and our recommendation for the mechanical system.
So, the initial school design was, the core of, as David mentioned, the core of the school was 1,500 students. But the plan for these two additions, the auxiliary gym and the classroom. So the mechanical system took that into consideration at the time. It's built 4-pipe with stub outs to go into the additions. And the most expensive item there being the chillers, the air conditioning units. We allowed room to add one when this was these additions were brought online. That makes it very easy in this case to tie in and, you know, and just pick up the rest of this, you know, make a consistent 1,500 student school mechanically. But we did want to take a look at geothermal. It's really, you know, become popular in a number of geothermal schools in recent years. And so we thought it would be, you know, we didn't want to cut that option out without taking a look at it. So we've run a life cycle cost analysis comparing the two. And, you know, that takes into account initial capital costs. The geothermal always costs more, but you have some, you know, distinct advantages economically and, you know, environmentally. But, and we looked at elements such as obviously the first cost, the space needs, where to put it, those kinds of issues. When you do a geothermal school from scratch, you don't have the large equipment yard we have at the back of this school now, with a nice space carved out for this third cooling machine. So you often save that money. In this case, we couldn't do that. And also, inside the mechanical space, there's a large boiler room that we could have carved out if we had done the school that way to start with. But, you know, 20 years ago, that was not really a viable option. So, so looking at initial capital costs, obviously, we could not save some of what we could save going away from 4-pipe now. And operation cost, obviously, geothermal is more efficient, certainly less expensive to operate, and also to maintain. Geothermal systems tend to be very simple. A lot of that's out in the ground. In this case, we already have boilers and chillers, and we have an advanced energy management system all programmed and set to run those. So we didn't have that opportunity again. So basically, with the life cycle cost analysis in this case, came out pretty conclusively that we would be best off to extend the 4-pipe system into this. So therefore, that would be our recommendation at this stage of the game, would be to extend the 4-pipe system. And the only other point I'll make with that is you have a good relevant mechanical system in a nice relevant school. It functions, you know, creates its good comfort levels and everything like that. You know, another 20 years from now, that system's going to be a real antique, and if geothermal or whatever comes after geothermal's out there, that's probably the time you could look at, okay, we're going to revamp this whole school, similar to what we've done with Orange High, and then you really open all those doors back up. But at this point, we recommend it.
Yes, it's currently, you know, one of the most expensive components of the chillers, and right now those chillers have a 20-year service life remaining. So that's part of the cost analysis. It makes sense to replace those when they still have 20 years remaining. The other thing is disruption of the campus. In order to put a well field in, we would significantly disrupt being able to park students on there, or being able to have any other site things taking place while a well field's being installed. And then the third would be, which is part of the maintenance cost, maintaining and running 2 different systems on the campus, because the existing building is not due for a mechanical upgrade yet. And so that's why, you know, when 20 years, when the entire building is due for another recycle, then certainly looking at geothermal across the board makes sense.
Yes, Mr.
Did we consider adding any type of solar panels?
We have a small PV array on the south space of that, to then supplement the electrical grid on the school. We didn't consider solar thermal for this case.
No, electrical.
Stephen and Will.
One quick question for the sake, we have several new board members here. So when this place was constructed and opened in 2002, it had, at that time, was a pretty hot thing by Mr. Ray DeBrule, who was a proponent of ice storage systems. Cedar Ridge and Pathways are the 2 only schools in the system that have ice storage systems. And unfortunately, at the high school, one consideration that didn't merit, I think, more complete attention was the fact that high schools are almost used 24/7. And there's no opportunity for the ice to build up in these big tanks. The deal was you make ice at night when the electricity rates are cheaper, and then you work off of that during the day when electricity rates go up. However, the place was open all the time. There were basketball games, football games, practices, people in that, people lived in that building, and the ice never had a chance really to get hard. Make it slop and
The whole
so.
economics of that required enough charging.
Yeah, but so you're not adding another ice
No.
thing, okay,
No,
good.
sir.
No.
It was a good theory, but
Yeah.
it presumed the place got locked down at 5 o'clock and everybody went
Yeah,
home.
it works better for an elementary, but even now, elementary schools are so used to
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It's-
Will
But-
had a comment.
Yeah, so the question I do have is around the geothermal. I'm not a proponent of having two different systems, but there's a question I have is some of the economics, whether it's electrical cost or changes that make it more amenable to do it sooner. The question I have is there anything that we can do in the building, such as you mentioned stub outs or whatever, to allow that transition when we want to do it, or it's an opportunity that we could, that it's not going to be, hey, if we had an access panel here or a cutoff valve here for these, that we could do the conversion and do it in phases or things like that. Is there any thoughts around doing?
It'd be worth considering some
Yeah.
sleeving.
Yeah.
You know, we've designed Orange High, so you kind of get the feel for it. It's basically taking that whole practice field, the wells, that'll contain all the wells. So if we could identify from a big picture, where would it make sense if we were taking over the whole school with geothermal now? Where would it make sense to centralize that, maybe get some
That would
sleeves
be
in?
forward thinking.
You
Kind of like the
know,
way we are with this.
Our analysis here, we estimated this thing based on the future student parking housing of the wells, which would be enough for this 50,000 square feet. But if you wanna do the whole school, now you're talking about probably the whole student parking lot, which for a period of a year, you know, you can't give that up, so you're talking about.
Yeah,
Sarah had a comment.
But, that's definitely a thought.
thank you.
Oh, great. I just wanted to go, so the gender neutral restrooms thing we were discussing earlier. I would be very interested in seeing what the trade-off would be for doing that in that space, and what we would need to lose in order for that to happen. I think even the point about not enough room in the restroom for ladies, I think is, you know, if they're all gender neutral and there's 14 of them, then you don't need to wait in a longer line, so.
No, historically, there were fewer,
You have fewer?
how can I make this, you know, men had so many urinals and so many toilet bowls, and for women, there were far fewer.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense. The predication was that men went to the bathroom more than women did, and it was crazy.
So, I mean, I don't know, I just saw that it looks like this isn't for action,
No
the point is to
action.
provide
Yeah, I think there's something they
comments,
should
so-
look at.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
So the next steps would be, we'll take the feedback, we'll go back and work on designs. Our policy actually says after we get comments and design review back from the Department of Public Instruction, then we would bring it back to the board.
Okay.
So there's some time for us to bring that
Okay.
back, but we would bring it back to you for action.
Okay, yeah.
But if you're 95% good with the designs and what we presented, it allows these folks to get to work, getting us to the point where we're ready for a submission and final review by the board.
That's the only question that I have, yeah, just looking at both options.
Yeah, the only other two was just circling back to the security part and the technology part. Those would be the two.
The security I can talk about when we do Safe Schools plans.
Right.
Okay. In closed session related to the campus plan for that, and the other we could.
And the technology, including like, you know, is there fiber, OM4, you know, what is gonna be fed in there that's gonna facilitate larger pipes for wireless, because as, you know, technology expands, we're gonna need more bandwidth in there, and so Mr. Jones over there definitely probably has some input on that.
And he's already provided input to the building as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Now, before we let you go, did I hear you say when Sarah was asking about the gender neutral facility in addition to the one that you said you were already providing, that we would have to lose a classroom perhaps?
What I said was we have to study it,
Ah,
Cause it may
very
take
good.
more,
Study it.
area,
Mm-hmm,
and so we'd have to look at what the trade-offs are.
okay, that's good. Well, thank you for providing an update.
Well, thank you for your input.
Yes.
It's a very exciting project, and again, we're glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we're happy that you're here.
Thanks. Have a good night.
All right,
You
thank
too,
you.
guys, be safe.
So next up, Patrick Aberley and Valerie is gonna talk about summer food service program update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is an update of the 2018 Summer Food Service Program. And in your packet, we provided you data from 2013 to present. And he's gonna bring it up in a minute. As noted, our participation and sites decreased this year due to decrease in meal sites and participation, as well as a loss of 1 week, June 18th. So normally we start like the week after school end, but this year we waited until June 25th to start. We were able to qualify the sites listed based on census data and school data to meet the 50% free and reduced threshold to receive free meals at these sites. The sites were claimed as open sites, which mean that any person or any child could come and eat at the sites at any time that the meal service was going on. The meals included, for lunch was a meat, a bread, a vegetable, fruit, and a milk, and the breakfast was a meat, a bread, a fruit, and a milk. And the meals had to be eaten on site, but non-perishable or any wrapped item could be taken from the site. We were excited to have Fairview Gardens this year to be a site, and we served them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the children had a chance to work in the garden in the morning, starting at 10 to 12, and then they had lunch. And then they had outside agencies to give them donations for the children to take home, as well as the fruits and vegetables that they grew in the garden, they got to take them home also. And we were grateful to have our returning sites, F&G's Community Center and Cedar Grove Community Center, to have lunch, especially for the outer areas of the county. We continue to service the Orange County Schools Camp of Engineering Matters, Read to Achieve, Family Success Alliance, and School Community Relations. And the Read to Achieve camp for Hillsborough Elementary will be September the 18th through September the 29th. And they will fall under the Summer Food Service Program because they didn't have a full Read to Achieve. So we were able to qualify them off census data, so they'll be able to receive free meals also. We also had community support from North Carolina Corporate Extension, the NC No Kid Hungry with Cooking Matters classes at the locations, the Orange County Solid Waste, and other outside agencies to assist to enhance the student food service, the summer food service program. And we're looking forward to next summer already, so we are in the process of recruiting. And so far, we have talked to the Orange County Library about providing foods for their summer programs.
That's nice. That's very cool. Oh, that's very good. Yes, Will.
So, one, it's so good to hear about this program and hear how many people are being affected. The one question I did have is, and I'll add some clarity before I ask it, is one of the programs that I saw that was so wonderful in our schools during the school year was the backpack program. And I'm not asking, are we packing up the food you're making and sending it home, because I already know you can't do that. I was curious if our partners with backpack programs, have we engaged them to offer something that they could take home through that program if someone shows up and they don't have something for the weekend, that they could bring that home, or any programs like that. I didn't see it explicitly in there, and it seemed like a program that only ran during the school year, but I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
The backpack program is handled through student services. So, I mean, we would have to work together to get it done, but student services handles the backpack program in this division.
So that's something we could look at?
Yes, we can look at that.
Thank you.
Wow, yes. Both of you.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, if you could tell me what led to the decision to the program being started a week after school started versus the next week?
There were teacher work days,
Okay.
on the it was the 18th and the 19th, there was something in there about teacher work days,
Okay.
from the snow.
It was, yeah.
Snow
Yeah,
makeup.
it was.
Oh, they were making them up
Yes.
to sit.
Right.
Yes.
Got
No.
it. So they were in
Summer.
school. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
My kids are on the year-round calendar,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I took, got it. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to thank Valerie for the job that she does, the job that she has done, and the job she will continue to do. And somehow or other, we need to capture some of this data. And when there's that big meeting with the county commissioners this fall, I would encourage the board to consider asking the superintendent to work some of this information in there, because they need to know the efforts to which our child nutrition program, not a private enterprise program, but a program run by the system and under the direction of Valerie Green, has fed all these children over the summer months. And, you know, there's something they need to hear.
Right.
And it is a social justice issue, and we're doing that without a district tax, and we're doing that with an enterprise program that's self-supporting and utilizing every possible piece of stuff coming from the USDA.
That's right.
I just wanted to say personally, thank you for what you do, day in and day out.
Because you've had so many, I feel like I could just give you, what is it, 2 loaves of bread and 2 fish, you could just, you know.
Boy, that's getting difficult.
Whoa. No, right, because I'm looking here, I see 400 served, you know, at Pathways, I mean, that's a lot. So your numbers are phenomenal, and so are you. So thank you so much for providing us, with your information. Well, Patrick is he staying seated? Oh, okay, I see. This was, who is next? Summer program review? Summer program review. I have that down here. Ooh, we got a crowd.
Will, did you notice the handling of the plug?
Yeah, right. There's a plug.
You notice that, Todd?
It just pains me to see.
That's why I wanted to make sure you got the full paint.
Yeah, right.
I think y'all set me here on purpose. I
That's
can
right.
see that.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this setup without the hosing, by the way.
Well, that's just for your work session, because we're not,
Oh, okay, I see.
Uh-huh.
Good evening.
Good
evening.
We wanted to bring you an update about the summer programs that have occurred this year. We have lots of guests with us, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves as they kind of go through the presentation. We'll move through this quickly. I think the opportunity for them to sit and join us will help us move through this much more smoothly. So we'll begin with Amanda Bulleratz as she's gonna discuss a little bit about Read to Achieve Camp.
Okay. I'm Amanda Bulleratz. I now serve as the assistant principal at Cameron Park. Many of you have met me before in other components, the literacy coach at Central. So I have been in charge of the Read to Achieve Camp for the past 3 years. So this year it was a summer safari theme that we had for our students. And this is just a few of the bullet points, I guess, about the program. So we served about 300 students in the program. They were selected based on their reading proficiency at the end of the year. The state requires us to serve first, second, and third grade. The board also contributed to be able to serve kindergarten as well. So we use a ratio of about 1 to 10. So we have 2 teachers co-teaching, and as you'll see later on in the presentation, that's something that they really enjoy about the camp, the teaching with another adult. So the emphasis on our curriculum this year, we used the Lucy Calkins and Letterland curriculum, which are resources that we have implemented within the district for the past couple of years. So what we did was use the resources we already had and kind of built on that and embedded it into our instruction. And these are just some pictures that we have from the camp. So this year was a little different. We had 3 camps in one. Previously we've had a camp at Hillsborough, a traditional school camp, and then a 4-5 power-up week. So this year we decided to combine it to kind of pool our resources in transportation and administration and all that stuff. So what we did is had Hillsborough come the first week before they started school, and then they will have their other 2 weeks during their fall intercession, as Valerie stated during that. And so the 4-5 power-up camp was offered to 4th and 5th grade students who were what we kind of call bubble students. They're right on the edge of proficiency based on their reading EOG. So we offered them a week of kind of like a power-up boost before they went back to school. So as I said earlier, we kind of talked about, I touched on the kindergarten component of how we implemented that, where across the state they're not doing that. They're not inviting kindergartners. Over the past couple of years, we have really seen how it has really benefited our kindergarten students. At the end of the year, kindergartners are expected to be on a D, and they need to maintain that over the summer to stay on a D in order to be proficient at the beginning of 1st grade. And what we have seen previously is that a lot of them have fallen below that. So we were able to invite students that were proficient at the end of kindergarten. They did make that D, but they were just barely proficient. So we were able to invite them as well. And this is just some data that we got from the students that attended camp. Most of them really enjoyed it. And then, as you probably read through the slides, we asked the students in that survey, what is a strategy or skill that they learned at camp that they were going to take with them into the new year. And so you could see all of the things that they learned. So far as, oh, go ahead.
I've got one question. At some point, I would be interested in having an update on the kindergartners that you did this year, because it sounds like this is the first year that you did that. After we get into the school year, how are the students that were in that camp, where are they now?
Absolutely.
So
You're saying that
we have already tagged those students. I will tell you that this is a change from DPI that we weren't totally aware of until literally the week of the 4th of July, interestingly. But so in our assessments, our M-class assessments, which is where we generally look at measured progress against benchmark across the state,
right.
We had one type of assessment that the state provided us in M-class for the end of year, and then they have issued all new assessment kits to the entire state across the state. So we will compare. I just wanted to give the caveat that we may not be measuring apples to apples, because they are 2 different assessments at this point in time. But we've already tagged those students, and we will monitor their progress as they're moving forward.
So that we can compare apples to apples. Do
yes,
we still
in the
have,
future, absolutely.
Do we still have access to last year's way of?
Actually, we do not.
You cannot do any.
We cannot.
So
we cannot assess anymore. The platform does not even exist. They have wiped out the background data for that. Absolutely.
They being
the state, the DPI did that. Yes, sir.
And we were given that new assessment just very few days before Hillsborough Elementary even started.
As a matter of fact, July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July, at about 5 o'clock in the evening, we got that information.
Well.
And so for kindergarten, it would probably be more similar than the higher grades because it's the writing component that they have taken out of it. It's still different books, but the writing component doesn't come into place until level F, which is about the middle of 1st grade. So it might be very similar for kindergarten.
Kindergarten, I think you said we're D's,
right?
So it should be similar.
Right.
It should be similar.
Okay, so this was the Safari stations. This is just where we integrated all of the different curricular areas, the arts, the math, the science, and they really had a lot of fun going to different areas. The media center was kind of set up. They also had some field trips to go along with our Safari theme. They were able to go to the Conservator Center in Burlington, and so they were able to provide a curriculum for our students that kind of tied into our reading camp, so that was a really great experience for them. This is some survey that we collected from our parents about how they felt about camp, and then some comments. Some of these were given to us in Spanish, and they were translated by our secretary for the camp also was bilingual, so she translated some of those comments for us. So this is the testing data that we had at the end of the camp. So we are required for the third graders to give them 2 opportunities to show proficiency. One in the TRC, which is the assessment we were just talking about that comes from M-Class. They're required to read and orally answer comprehension questions, as well as a writing component, which next year has been taken out. So and then they also are given the opportunity to take the RTA assessment, which is a standardized test that's very similar to the EOG. It's shorter. The paragraphs are just formatted a little bit different. So looking at the data from last year, we had about 27% of our students that attended showed proficiency at the end of camp. And this year we increased our proficiency to about 60%. We had 25 out of our 42 students in 3rd grade show proficiency in one of the 2 assessments.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So the leap in the TRC is really huge and awesome. The test that they took this year, did it include the writing component, or did it not include? Okay.
It did. So they allowed anyone who was currently in camp to continue taking that assessment, and then they of course pulled them back from there. Now we still have those resources as far as the books that were used. We just don't have the online platform to assess with.
So what do you attribute that to?
So, great question. I think the main thing that we attribute it to is, so we had 3 classes for those 42 that were put into 3 groups of 42 with 2 teachers. So the co-teaching component was a very strong piece. They were able, and we also, the Lucy Calkins curriculum is very heavy on responding to reading through writing. And so there's a great emphasis placed on the writing portion of response to reading, is what pretty much they had to do during the TRC.
I think this is another component, and I'll come right back to you, Mr. Roberts, that we think is a big piece of it. In the past, we have asked teachers to plan, in addition to the process of starting summer camp in the midst of everything else. So this year, we did a lot of planning ahead of time, provided a full course curriculum for them, with resources that they were able to access. So they were able to literally log in. They had all the resources in their hands. They had whatever was necessary for students to be able to do. It created also consistency, so that those teachers had the opportunity to have professional conversations with each other. Honestly, we had a lot of positive feedback with teachers from a variety of schools who learned a deeper implementation of our literacy programs over summer school, and just at another level. So I think it has been beneficial in multiple ways.
Go back to the research testing data. The one thing I'm curious about is last year, the 12 out of 44, 27% proficient. What level did they come in? What level did they end? This year you had 25 out of, because going from 27% to almost 60%. That's impressive if there's something in there. But out of that 25, where did they start? Where did they end? Is there a similar type of growth out of those 25, or did they start out higher?
We can absolutely look at that data. We know that those students are generally in 3rd grade under what we would have considered a level P, which is their proficiency. But yes,
yeah, that's a big range.
We can absolutely look at that for you.
But I mean, if they're starting close to the same point, that's a tremendous improvement. But if they're not starting at the same point, it could be slightly misleading.
True.
Well, what I would say is, I don't think we're trying to be
I'm
misleading
not-
with
I
the
don't mean
data.
that
I think
way.
our goal is that kids read on grade level.
That's right.
And that regardless of where they come into us, that we push them toward proficiency
Yes,
and reading on grade level.
I phrased it incorrectly, but I think it is important that we know that was there a similar, was that growth really because they started at the same level? That we want everybody at college or career ready as we're going forward. But if we need to make sure that if we're saying that we had almost doubling the number of students that were proficient, is it something that we really did different? And it could be the fact that it was organized in the second year that we're doing it, so we're getting better at it.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
And that's part of it. We're getting down on the learning curve. But is there something else there too that we may need to be aware of?
Good question.
and these are just some of the comments that we also gave a survey to the teachers. As I mentioned before, they really enjoyed the co-teaching component of it, and a lot of them commented on the planning that was already done for them. They had a wide variety of resources available from things across the district that we used.
So I had a question. How many special needs kids normally attend these camps? Or you can just give me a percentage or anything.
I don't have an exact number.
Well, it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
just curious about what you think.
So it's offered to them.
Yeah.
If they qualify, if their
course.
particular, need is in that particular area, it's offered to them. We have not specifically tracked that data. We do have some demographic data, but we have not specifically tracked that data, but we certainly can go back, as again, I've tagged them all, so I can absolutely find that information for you specifically.
Okay, it would be, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a good
to know.
question, I think so.
So the 4th and 5th graders went to, attended the Power Up camp. So with this camp, we focused really on 3 components: literacy, math, and then a type of team building, problem solving group. So it was kind of like a get ready for middle school type of thing. They were in 3 different classes and they rotated between the 3 classes. And these are just some of the activities. The literacy instruction was, there was an emphasis on context clues and character inference, and that was kind of put together through a crime scene. It kind of set the premise for the whole week, and they had to solve the crime through inferencing. And then the math, the emphasis was on fractions, so they had a lot of different hands-on activities that they used to practice their fractions. They were able to make ice cream and candy pizzas and all kinds of fun stuff. So we had about 60 campers that attended for the 4th and 5th grade camp. And as I said, they had 2-hour blocks of each of those sessions. Again, the lessons were created by teachers in the district for the teachers of this camp as well. And that's about it for that. Is there any other questions?
Did you do a similar sort of pre-post test on reading comprehension or anything like that?
For 4th and 5th graders?
Yes.
Not specifically for the camp, but we did use EOG data in order to invite kids. Like I said, we kind of took the ones that were showing right on the edge of proficiency, and so we are going to be able to track them through our universal screening systems and run benchmark data and things like that.
Great.
Good evening, my name is Candace Sauls, and I'm one of the assistant principals at Orange High School, and this year I served as the administrator for summer school. So we'll just share some information with you concerning our credit recovery program, which ran for 2 weeks in the month of June at both locations, Orange High School and Cedar Ridge High School. So all in all, we have 76 students enrolled in 100 courses. Some students took multiple courses for credit recovery, and of those 76 students that completed it, we had a 76% completion rate. So we had that number of students to recover their credits for credit recovery. And for summer school, which took place from July 9th through July 26th, we had a total number of 93 students who were enrolled and completed summer school. And of those 93, we had an 88% completion rate. So those students, 88% completed the course and received a grade replacement at the end of summer school.
So, I apologize, I have some learning questions, I guess. So I see that, I get what the high school credit recovery is, but the question I have is I see that for the high school recovery, there were 6 graduates, and then for high school summer school, there were 3 graduates. How do you determine which one the student actually goes in to go for graduation?
Okay, so for graduation, students had to be completed by June 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And so even some of the students who were, who completed, they came to summer school and completed, so they were allowed to graduate, but they had to finish by the June 30th date, if I'm not mistaken. Am I answering that correctly, Mr. Johnson?
The actual date this
year, and historically it's been June 30th.
Okay.
This year is July 15th.
So, if I play it back a little bit, so some of the seniors could have gone to,
Summer school and completed before the July 15th date and
okay,
gone towards our graduation.
perfect.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that makes sense. It
Okay, I'm
just,
sorry.
no, just when I look at it, I'm not familiar with it, and so I was
Yes,
just
sir.
trying to understand. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
sir.
I hope this is love technology, but you don't have to trust it. I'm Erin Dennison, I'm the district STEM facilitator, and we ran 4 weeks of STEM camps this summer from 2 different funding sources. So the first one is the 4th year of our enterprise camp with school and community relations. And this one is for rising 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. It was a 2-week-long camp. We had a max of 30 kids. It's $150 per week, and we did have some kids that went from, that did 1 week rather than 2 weeks. We learned that we put our camp on at the same time as band camp. So when we look forward next year about doing some calendaring, we may look at that. It's all hands-on learning. They looked at accessible playgrounds. We did a lot of stuff with alternative energies, did a ton of 3D modeling when they were looking at possible playground equipment for an accessible playground. Did a lot of robotics. In fact, we used some of the robots that I brought for our pre-K, and that was like our intro challenge, and the amount of math that these kids generated for themselves when trying to solve these robotics challenges with these itty-bitty little B-bots was really great. We had 3 teachers. We did not provide lunch this year or breakfast, but kids enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. This is a video.
Oh.
This is our 2nd camp. This was funded by Bros Welcome.
So I don't have a speaker. So we'll see what we can do with it.
Some good-looking basil.
There's a lot of basil.
Yeah, it's like, boy, I could really do something with that.
That's at the Hub Farm, which is next to Eno Valley Elementary School in Durham. It's a amazing place. I taught there in the early 90s when the goats at that farm just we would get notices that the goats were out, and we had to make sure they didn't get in our classroom. It was interesting teaching. Anyway, we had, that is the year 2 of the Bros Welcome Fund grant. They give us a total grant of $170,000. We get a disbursement each year based on the reporting that I do, if they think that we did what we said we were gonna do. So they gave us year 2 last year. That's what ran this one. Those kids are all from Title I schools with a few exceptions. We focused recruitment efforts on people who are underrepresented in STEM fields. So for our purposes in this county, that's largely female and minority students. And the whole goal of that 2 weeks is for them to see themselves as STEM professionals, that these are accessible careers for them, as long as they're willing to put in the work and the effort. I had 8 amazing teachers. We ran 4 buses, free tuition, free food, for both breakfast and or snack and lunch. And then the kicker is that all of the kids whose family wanted it are transported to Sportsplex for 3 hours of after camp care. So for some of these families, their children were taken care of between 7:30 in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And we're gonna, again, this year, touch base with those kids 6 times during the year. Any child that was in the camp this summer will get the first invitation to next summer's camp, so we hopefully are building a cohort of kids that think of themselves as student leaders. And I do have another grant in the hopper to extend up to middle school called Engineering Solutions, so I'll find out in a month or 2 whether they give that to us.
That's phenomenal.
The grant that you're leading in on that one, this one for some of the new board members is what I consider an excellent camp. And I'm hoping that we're making sure that they know how successful it's being received in the community. So that we can sell them on it, because you got 1 more year on it.
Yes, although I think I'm also allowed to apply for extended funding for an additional 2 years for the elementary school camp. I'll find that out this year.
And expanding it to middle school sounds exciting also.
Yep, and I've also, just heads up, had a request to push down to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade camp, so that's just up to you fine folks.
Good evening, my name is Richard Lewis.
Oh, I have one question. So, I know that at middle school, there's some great robotics organizations that compete and do those kind of things. How, I guess the question I'm trying to get to is how are we, keeping them engaged? Because, seeing the middle schoolers and how they just, come together as a team, they separate, and somehow connecting these kids to, hey, when you get to middle school, here's some cool things that you get to do. This isn't just a camp that you're gonna do in summer. This is something that grows into a career. Is there any chance for the robotics team to come in and show them something, or
Absolutely, during the summer camp or during our,
no, during the camp.
Lots of opportunities. I'm passionate about making sure that this is equitable and accessible. So one of the barriers that these families have is getting to an after-school or staying at an after-school program can be super challenging. So an alternative way of getting there is to do a lot of problem-based learning during the school day, make use of the makerspace, make sure teachers are getting comfortable with those kinds of activities in a classroom setting.
Well, we have some buses that'll have Wi-Fi and they could do the work on the bus. Just saying.
That is
It's later on the agenda.
I was just gonna add in, we are following those students in the 6th grade and making sure that hopefully they're taking our computer programming and our Project Lead the Way courses.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Sarah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So many questions, there's so many things on the agenda. Okay, one question I had is the first STEM or STEAM program, why no breakfast or lunch this year? And then the second question was, all of these, I mean, I saw a lot of like really great sort of like cool robotics stuff, Lego robotics, all those things. Someday, if this grant ends, can we still use all of those materials and the curriculum and all of these ideas, and like there's still a cost to it, but we have a lot there that can sort of maintain regardless?
Yeah, most of what we use as far as like the robotics is, those are all purchased, and you have to keep up with those because robots get better and more capable, so you do have to keep up with those. But we now have robotics in every elementary school starting in pre-K. That's bought, it's paid for, and they're hopefully teachers get more and more comfortable. All of the 3D printers are now in the process of outfitting the high school science and math departments with 3D printers, so as children get more comfortable with 3D modeling, they'll be able to say to their teacher, I'd like to model this. So the big ticket items have been purchased. The rest of this is almost all of it is found material, or great teachers doing some just amazing lesson planning. So absolutely, that's the plan for student engagement, is to make sure that all kids get access to this eventually.
Sorry, and then why didn't you have breakfast or lunch in the other program?
So the funding comes from different, the STEAM camp is parent funded with some scholarships. And we did have lunch provided for them for the first 2 years, and very few children wanted it.
Okay.
So they were much more comfortable bringing their own. So rather than make more work for child nutrition, we just, and the kids were fine with that. And I don't think, except for the very first year, had breakfast in the STEAM camp. So that's where that decision came from.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Richard.
Good evening, my name is Richard Lewis. I'm coordinator for School Community Relations. Our culinary camp was our partnership with CTE. This year we did 2 weeks of culinary camp at $150 a week, and it was geared towards 6th through 8th graders. We had a slight increase when you look at it because we were talking earlier about numbers. We saw where we had 14 kids last year. So this year we did 2 weeks of camp. We had 1 week where it was 10, the next week where it was 21, and the parents, the kids, everyone enjoyed it. They made their own cookbook, and we gave them aprons. So instead of giving them t-shirts like we do in other camps, they got aprons this year, and they created their own pop-up restaurant. Now, some of the real life experiences that they had was that they got to see what it was like to be a bakery chef in the kitchen. They went to our local co-op. They wanted to find out what it was like to do that. And so I think what we're doing is we're encouraging a love just in this field in Orange County, and I like it. And we have a perfect opportunity to do it with our partners.
Was that a video that you passed by?
I was just trying to think that we'll get that going here.
Okay.
Trying to make sure I have that one.
The whole apron thing.
I think it's pretty much the same thing for the most part.
Okay.
As we're going through. All right, very good. And
Okay, Will's got a question.
So did y'all have anybody on the waiting list, or?
No,
so
we didn't.
y'all were able to serve everybody?
We were able to serve
No
everyone.
pun intended?
No. No, it was good. Yes, everyone got in, and this was really great. And it just lets us know that we might expand next year, go to 3 weeks.
I mean, I mean, on a personal level, it's a wonderful transferable skill into so many other fields. If, you know, inspections, you know, cooking, personal, it's just wonderful to see the kids engaged.
Now, our summer camps this year, we termed Global Palooza, where we had initially 7 weeks, we wanted to go to 7 continents. When we got to the 6 weeks, we just interjected China in. It was a great value. Breakfast was served through our summer food service program. We had afternoon snacks. They had field trip transportation through our transportation department at Orange County Schools. And we maintained a 1:15 ratio of staff to campers, so it was always safe. Everyone's CPR and first aid certified. And all of our camps are 5-star rated with the state. This is an overview of some of the activities through the week. I threw in a picture of a lot of, like, some of the kids doing some of the things that you'll see, the snow globes, the man collar. When they went to Safari Nation, they really took that in really well because they thought about what it would be like to trek across North America. And it was great. A lot of great activities, STEM-based. We were able to pull in the iPads and use those a little bit to where the kids got a little more experience with that. And then we closed out by partnering with Drama Kids International. So each week she came in, worked with a particular camp, and at the end we had a presentation for all the parents.
That's great.
That's great.
All right, thank you.
Oh, can I just share a
Oh,
comment on that one?
absolutely.
My
Yeah.
girls did a couple of weeks of the camps. They
Yes.
loved seeing their, the TAs from the after school, they do the after school program too, and they loved seeing their TAs. They loved the field trips, definitely, they loved those components of it very much.
That's great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time and presentation. And now we're having a concussion research study. Presentation done by Michelle, Jason, and Emily.
Good evening. We're here to discuss the concussion research study at Orange High School. We have with us tonight Ms. Emily Gaddy, who's the athletic trainer at Orange High School, as well as a sports medicine teacher. We also have with us Dr. Mahalik, the assistant professor at UNC Chapel Hill in the Department of Exercise and Sports Science, and she's the lead researcher on this project.
So a little background for the new members of the board. Orange was involved in a 2-year study with UNC over the past 2 school years. Our football team was. It was called BMOD and investigated the effects of targeted behavior modification on reducing the risk of sports-related concussions. We concluded that in the 2017-18 school year. And because of that established relationship, OHS was asked to participate in this ongoing research project. No, you're good. It's an NFL-funded grant, and it's led by researchers at UNC Chapel Hill, as well as the Medical College of Wisconsin. This one is an international collaboration, working with 3 different countries, as well as high schools and colleges, across a variety of sports, so not just football. A little bit of background on concussion care. Currently, when a concussion happens, the athlete's removed from play and we just wait for them to get better. And once they're symptom-free, then we put them through a 5-stage return to play process that increases their activity over those 5 stages. And we just make sure symptoms don't come back. There is no research though on is that overall just the best effective way to manage concussions, or is there something that we can do in that interim from the time they get hurt to the time that they're symptom-free to aid in that recovery process. So that's the purpose of this study. What activities may improve those outcomes versus just waiting? So it's a threefold. Want to evaluate the effectiveness of the current protocols, as well as how does it compare graded exertion, which is the current standard, wait for them to get better, increase their activity over those 5 stages, are they recovering? Versus a rehab program that would incorporate a variety of activities that still does not increase their symptoms, but gives them something to do in that interim, and then demonstrate that those are safe and feasible alternatives to concussion care. These are the current people in the study. The Canadian Football League's involved, New Zealand Rugby. There's 6 colleges, 6 high schools in Wisconsin, and then UNC received IRB approval to add 2 North Carolina high schools, with Orange being one of them.
Impressive.
What y'all should know, UNC is responsible for the aspects of the study. They'll also be providing the resources to the school that we need for the research, as well as the baseline testing and the manpower to do that. The athletic trainer, which would be me, assistant scheduling, communication with athletes and coaches, as well as their in-house progression through their care if they get a concussion. It'll be about 500 students from the 2 North Carolina high schools that are asked to participate, and that is with parent approval and consent. The 2 high schools will be randomized into one of the 2 arms. Are we gonna be in the one that's just the standard course of care, which is the EGE, or are we gonna be incorporating some of those rehab steps and progressions, which is the MDR. Currently, the study has not had any adverse or safety-related events reported. All of the rehab activities are supervised by the medical professional, myself, as well as the physician overseeing that individual athlete's care. Study is completely voluntary. Both the student athlete and their parent have to choose to participate. If one party or the other chooses not to, then they're not in it. They can also ask to leave the study at any time.
Will and then Steve.
So is this only football-related sports? I heard you say earlier it could be any, but is it year-round or just?
We will be in it for just the school year. It's funded to be a 3-year study, so we're coming in on the last year of it. Because of the concussion data that we already collect in this county, we've targeted the teams that show the highest likelihood of getting a concussion, since we have to do all of the background testing and baseline testing and things like that. We're gonna focus on our sports that show the higher likelihood of a concussion.
And which ones are those?
For the fall, it'll be football, cheer, men's soccer. In the winter, it will be wrestling and cheer. And for the spring, it will be women's soccer and lacrosse.
Yeah, the chair and I are the only board members left now that attended the concussion study program at the school law conference in Asheville a bunch of years ago. But as a former high school principal for 15 years, you know, I was one of the people that voted to hire you.
I appreciate it.
And it was one of the smartest moves that I have made as a school board member, and a smart move the school board made, because every time you appear before us, I feel compelled to praise you publicly, because you are somebody that any high school coach and principal and coach in America would want to have on their faculty. Because, you know, you collect a salary whether you sit in your office and put some tape on people once in a while, or engage in bigger issues and looking at a bigger picture that's of a serious nature in this country today. And I just wanted to say publicly again, thank you for being here, Ms. Gaddy, and I just think you're wonderful. And I'm just gonna say that. And because of the partnerships you have and your willingness to do this kind of thing, you bring the university partners into this. And this is critically important. So once again, thank you, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Superintendent, a couple of years ago, were we not donated some helmets from UNC in regards to concussion and those type of things? We never heard any any results from those studies coming back. So is it, at some point, can we get some information?
We did provide
Yeah, I
a report
presented it last
to the
October.
board.
Well, for the new board members that didn't
May
get
I
it.
speak to that? Because we are working on
Yeah,
school,
sure.
district, I actually just received an email where folks are reviewing the reports to be able to provide you all with an update.
Okay.
So that
Right.
you.
Yeah, it'd be great for the new board
Yeah,
members
helmets
to
not
get that
good.
information. Because it was not only Orange, but it was Cedar Ridge as well.
Just
No, it's
Just
just
orange,
orange.
just orange.
Just orange, just like the report said. Just orange.
Just one quick question about the rehab approach. Could you give any specifics on any of the types of rehab measures that you all are gonna employ as part of the study?
So things like walking and talking at the same time can
Okay.
be difficult. We had a couple of students after some injuries last year doing something similar in the hospital setting. I know one of the activities they found engaging, having them standing on a balance pad while playing a memory game, so the matching game. So having them do things like that that's going to increase their cognitive thought processes while doing something physically exerting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? All right, thank you so very much for providing us with that update. And now we're gonna have the dual language program update. And we have with us tonight.
I'd like to welcome Miss Amber Wilson, and I'm gonna let her introduce her friends that are with her, and she's gonna update us a little bit about dual language.
They are my friends.
Yeah. Our friends.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to come and update those of you that were on the board on the progress that we've made with dual language and global leadership at New Hope, but also for those of you that are new, to review a couple of the things that you probably want to know about our program in order to fully understand kind of the work that we're engaging in. So the first slide the next one, yeah. So I wasn't positive when I built this PowerPoint that they were going to get to join me, but I'm so excited that they are here. And they're going to share a little bit when I'm done giving you some of the nuts and bolts. But just to give you an idea of who they are, Holly used to be a teacher in our EC department in our district level max resource classroom. And she decided to try regular ed. She's dual certified, and she just wanted to give that a go. So she moved into 2nd grade, and she was great. And we needed to shift some numbers, and so she's like, I'll go to kindergarten. And I was like, okay. So she went to kindergarten last year, and she fell in love with the age group, the curriculum that they do, and she's an amazing kindergarten teacher. And I truly believe that you have to have a gift to teach kindergarten. I don't have that gift. You know, I taught 1st and 2nd and 4th, but Holly has that gift to teach kindergarten, and she does it with grace. Louise was an ESL teacher at New Hope last year. Was it last year? No, it was the year before. It was last year. 4 years. Okay, so last year, so I'm trying to remember the year that you did. He actually was the teacher of record for a literacy cohort in 1st grade because he wanted to really understand what was necessary for that literacy block for our language learners. And so he took on that task, and he was their teacher of record for literacy for an entire year and did great work with those kids. And he has done some amazing things with the 1st grade team in terms of really thinking about our instructional strategies that we use with our English language learners, but also just low language kids, which are a lot of the kids that we serve at New Hope in general, and really across Orange County schools, I think. But they are both going to be the teachers in our dual language program as we implement this year, and I can't think of a better team. They are silly and passionate. They absolutely love spending time together. They can complete each other's sentences. They often can engage in bantering conversations around pedagogy, but also, you know, instructional practices, even down to the decorations and how they're going to do it. So it works for them, and I think that makes them a great team. But they'll tell you a little bit more about that. So some of the kind of basics about our program model, we are already registered as a dual language program with DPI. Michelle Woodson is listed on there as the district administrator. I'm listed on there as the school-based administrator. When you define your program with DPI, we are listed as a 2-way dual immersion for English and Spanish and a 50-50 model. So what that kind of means is that half of the instruction will be delivered in English, half of the instruction will be delivered in Spanish. 50% of the students are native English speaking, 50% of the students are native Spanish speaking. We were fortunate that when we consulted with legal attorneys in setting up our lottery process, because what we were trying to design in the dual language program mimics the overall population of our school, it made it pretty easy for us. So we were able to kind of run 2 separate lotteries. one for our native English speakers and one for our native Spanish speakers. So enrollment for this year balanced out beautifully, and actually, like, we couldn't have gotten it any better. It ended up exactly balanced in gender, exactly balanced in native language, and then we also had good racial balance that mimics the school. So we were very satisfied with the results of the lottery, even though all of those pieces we can't control in the lottery, it just landed that way in our favor. So we held parent information sessions in the spring, and we had 30 to 45 participants at each of those sessions. Currently there are 15 students on our wait list. We have been able to seat 2 students this summer due to some transitions. And this is exciting for me. You may not see it that way, but we had 2 students who actually declined being seated at Hillsborough Elementary to be able to come back to their home school and stay for dual language. So that meant a lot to me.
Yeah,
that we're finally, we have something that makes them want to be there. So that was, I think that's a win. Ultimately, our goal in this is to make sure that our students are bilingual, biliterate, and also bicultural, and the students who are not being served in the dual language program will have the opportunity to continue to recognize the benefits of diversity through the Global Leadership Program that we'll be doing K-5. So the dual language program will only be in kindergarten this year, and it will grow up each year. So we're starting with a cohort of 48 students, so that's 24 kinders in each classroom. So dual language classrooms are exempt from class size allotments, in case you're wondering how we're doing that. So that is definitely helpful. So Luis and Holly today chose to put, with the staggered entry, they chose to put the 29 students who came today together. And they had a really awesome first day.
Do that all the time.
They really like being together. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that's going to feel like. So they will run kind of an A day, B day model, where Luis will have 24 students with his teacher assistant. One day, the next day, Holly will pick up that instruction in English with her teacher and teacher assistant. The following day, they will go back to Luis, continuing their learning, not just simply repeating what they did the previous day. So some of the classroom structures and curriculum models that will ensure that this program is consistent with all of the other core instruction that's happening across Orange County schools. They will utilize the units of study. The writer's workshop dovetails nicely as they're written by the same team of authors coming out of Columbia University with Lucy Calkins. The language experience is something that we started at New Hope last year, and so that we're going to continue to grow that program, recognizing that the dual language program is offering a language experience, but still we want these students to engage in the language experiences that are planned through the ESL collaboration as well. Letterland will be the phonics structure that we use just like all the other kindergarten classrooms. Letterland is not available in Spanish, and as you can imagine, Spanish phonics progression is different than English, and so we researched and chose to go with Estrellita, which will be the phonics program that we use in the Spanish classroom, although we're still awaiting its arrival, so that's kind of, we're ready to have those materials in our hands, so we're hopeful. The Bridges math curriculum is available online in Spanish. Everything is already translated, which is great, because translating everything is time consuming and taxing mentally. And so I'm glad for Luis's sake that he does not have to translate all of those materials. We did opt as a district not to purchase the physical materials in Spanish because we're just not sure at this point how much of that we're going to use. So we will continue to engage in conversations with the Curriculum Instruction Office with Dr. Ms. Woodson and Jennifer Parker. But we just want to make sure that these classrooms are really consistent with everything else that is happening. And we'll monitor, you know, kind of how that's going. Mr. Rios did teach FSA this summer, our Family Success Alliance Summer Readiness Camp, and he began to introduce many of the students who have opted into dual language, participated in that camp, and so he was able to kind of start some of those structures and routines during the summer, which went really well. So monitoring progress and just overall monitoring of the program and the implementation so that we can be reflective and thinking about adjustments that need to be made, both this year, but also as we continue for sustainability purposes. We will make sure that we're monitoring their progress in English and in Spanish. Assessments will be utilized in both of the classrooms. We recognize that there's going to be a need to think about the time spent on assessments, right? And so we're already beginning to plan ways to support those assessment structures and minimize that feeling of being over-assessed, but we also recognize the need to monitor both the progression in English and in Spanish. M-class or DIBELS assessments are available to us in English and in Spanish. All of the math assessments can be done in both languages. The KEA are more observational assessments, and so the teachers will only be able to input one assessment score for the students, but that can be a collaborative effort between both classrooms. New Hope will also be kind of piloting the way with standards-based grading this year. Michelle and I developed a year-long implementation of standards-based grading, and so the dual language classrooms will also have standards-based report cards that are available in both languages. And it just kind of puts them side by side so parents can quickly compare the progress in both. We will utilize the MTSS process to kind of support students and monitor what interventions and structures are in place to help students who may struggle in both languages. And again, just making sure that we're looking at instruction, monitoring it, and being reflective. Some of the tools and structures that we're implementing, I'm currently creating through my work at East Carolina University. I'm in courses there. I'm in my second course of 4 to attain my add-on licensure for dual language administration. So that work that I'm doing for that add-on licensure is directly impacting the work that we're doing here, which has also given me a resource bank of people around our state who are already engaged in this work or who are even experts in that work. So I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to do that as we are, kind of entering this work. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and just give these 2 individuals a chance to share with you a little bit about why they want to be a part of this and their hearts and their passion for this work. Yeah.
Well, this has always been something that I could see at New Hope from the moment that I did some like visits to the school when I was in my undergraduate work, and I could see the community and the population of Latino students, and I was student teaching in a classroom with majority white students in a dual language program, and it just didn't make sense to me how at New Hope Elementary you had the community for it, but not at this other school, and they could actually implement it. So it's really exciting that it's finally here. We're doing it. We had our first day today, and for me, the big reason that this matters is because our families get to finally have a classroom that they could come volunteer in and feel completely comfortable doing that. They could tutor in math. They could help read stories to children, and it'd be completely normal. It's not like this guest coming in to read a special Spanish story. And it's honoring them, and it's acknowledging their language and their culture. And Holly and I are so excited to not just build in language, but really bring in children's culture and their family's culture. So thank you so much for the support that you are giving this, because it's at the school level, it's at the district level, it's at Dr. Ward level, so it's
God's level. I know, so you're not the district, you're at top.
So thank you so much.
So coming from an EC perspective into general ed, I've always been a huge advocate for all students, so the opportunity to also work with this awesome guy, but to be able to advocate for, not only like special education students, but also the culture like in our school is just a really awesome opportunity. So one thing that we are super excited about is really designing instruction that meets the needs of our kids and tailor our instruction. I think the best part is just the philosophy that we both have
the caring nature and the nurturing and just the collaborative piece of it. Sorry, I have a lot of notes. And we want to have the experience first part of our classroom, so we really want kids to be experienced in their learning and not just that direct instruction piece. We want them to learn by doing, and we have a lot of visions for like project-based learning and doing a lot of things together and building that community. So we really want, for future cohorts, for kids to really lean on each other and for parents to really lean on each other. And, you know, and that's between cohorts, that's within the cohort, and we really want to do that community outreach piece of inviting parents. And we have just so many ideas of like a monthly like celebration for our community and ways to bridge us. And we really have a vision for like the student-led learning. So we really want kids to take ownership of their learning and do a lot of goal setting with both the English and Spanish in both rooms. So it's really nice to work with somebody that has that will to do this. They're the same philosophies, you know, and autonomy that we're going to bring to both of these classrooms. And the way that we're already, like even just our first day, like the way that we're intentionally like planning our literacy, and we really want to like connect the like books we're reading and like all the math books and materials that we're using. Like today we read like a dual language, you know, book, and I read it in English, and my student teacher read it in Spanish. It was just cool that just to think while I was reading, I was just thinking like what an opportunity is for these children who have had to consistently come to school and not learn in their native language, and the fact that they're being able to like listen for like the first time, you know, they're to like a story in their own language, like in a school setting, is just, it's really impacted me to think about the fact that we've had so many students miss out on this opportunity, and the fact that we get to be a part of breaking down those barriers and for the first like dual language program. So try not to crack up. I'm just super excited about being a part of it.
That's great.
As you can see, they are so excited.
Will, you have a comment?
So I have a couple of comments and a question. So we're excited, obviously, for this new program and, you know, meeting a greater need in our community. The first one I have is do you know how many special needs kids are in the program that got selected through the lottery?
So I think there are 3 that have active IEPs, but not all of those are directly linked to academics. Some of those may be speech language.
That's perfect. The second one I had was more maybe for you is, so this program has great capacity and being very prescriptive and immersion. And the question I have is the kids that move on, obviously next to the next grade, they're going to be significantly ahead of the general population. For example, in a non-Spanish speaking child that now goes to a Spanish speaking class and they're way ahead of everybody else. How are we accommodating those kids that want to continue on the program and maybe do deeper learning in that skill? Do you know what I mean? Because they're going to come to, hey, we only offer Spanish 1 or beginning Spanish. Right. I know this will grow eventually, but I'm trying to think of, hey, you know, we're growing this and we want to challenge the kids and let them, you know, be excited and grow in it, and then they get to the next one and we don't quite have that there. So I'm just curious, have y'all thought about that or how that would be?
So we have thought about that,
Okay.
and that will be a continued conversation and something that we are really strategic about. But you're exactly right. As you're growing from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, it works kind of nicely in the confines of the elementary school.
Right.
Many middle schools do have, are feeding from dual language programs, and we will need to have that conversation here, as well as what does that exactly look like. Many times that could be a content area teacher that is a Spanish taught course. For example, 6th grade social studies might be a course that could be done, or it can happen through an elective wheel, which is something that an option for students to have. And many school systems use it through the elective wheel, providing both global opportunities for kids to get some more coursework in that, as well as in a particular content area with regards to a language, depending on what that language is.
So could we get some comeback with that? Cause I'd love to see how that fits together, especially, you know, as kids look at, you know, whether it's CTE or college and, you know, developing that and getting credits, you know, early on, so that.
We certainly can. We are 5 years away from the implementation
Yes.
at this point.
5 years away.
I'm used to working on that, so.
But we've done,
We have.
the reality is at the middle school level, if you look across the state, there is a lot of inconsistency. There are a number of different models that Michelle's referenced, just a couple, and we've done some research on a variety of those, and have had some initial conversations with Mr. Rockland too about what that looks like at ALS long term too. So we can definitely come back. We certainly have a little time to build that model, but yeah.
Welcome, Hillary.
I just wanted to say how excited I am for you guys and for your school, and I'm really sorry I don't like each other, but I can't wait to see how the program blooms through you guys, and I hope you will invite us to some things if it's appropriate for us to be there, because we'd love to see it firsthand.
Most definitely. I'm excited to come too, very excited for you all. And I just want to say to you all and the other educators in the room, thank you for being here tonight for the first day of school. I know that's a very long day. Thank you. But thank you for what you're doing. It's special.
And I want to say, I really appreciate your enthusiasm because I can see it, and I know the students will be able to sense it, and so they will know that you genuinely care. So I'm excited about it, and yes, I'm concerned about your long day. I said something to Todd about it, and he said, okay, we can do this, but I'm really concerned about you all working a 14-hour and 15-hour day.
Oh, we're used to it this
Oh, yeah. Well, you just keep on smiling like that in April. All right, yes or no, Nate?
Very, very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Keep up the good work. I know you're gonna have a successful year.
Yeah,
And the children and the parents are really gonna appreciate it.
Yeah.
So thank you for everything you do.
I'm really lucky to have
But you
that.
can't buy enthusiasm.
You certainly cannot.
You cannot buy it,
I know
that's all I
you
know. Good luck.
Right, thank you all so much.
So
Sweat.
the last couple things I wanted to share with you was just about the globalization of our schools. So there have been a couple physical changes that we've tried to make. Obviously, limited budget can impact like what you can do, but we are fortunate that our media center was painted. I know Dr. Wirt is sad because he really liked that mauve color in there. We discontinued our sponsorship this summer, so it's a much calmer environment now. Please come by and see it. Our school logo was also updated. We wanted our logo to, so I don't know if you've ever really looked at the New Hope logos over time, but you know, it kind of started as a sun, and then there was this rocket, but it was kind of weird looking rocket, and then there was some different, so it's kind of just been going through the years. So we had a graphic artist try to pull in the global, the New Hope, the rocket to be true to the history of New Hope, but also kind of look at the forward, right? So there are new doormats when you come in that have the new logo. The new logo's kind of across the school. There are global cultural displays. Some of the items, I just took a picture of one of the display cases that we actually put up at the end of last year to try to get the community engaged in this. And some of the items in there were actually provided by families. And there's some little blurbs that are there that talk about the item. Many of them are from staff. The regions of focus that we're going to use at New Hope are aligned to standards. Our teachers had the opportunity to kind of write a proposal as to which region of focus they felt aligned for their grade level, and they had to kind of pitch it and sell it to the instructional leadership team. And remarkably enough, every PLC got their top choice. And so it just kind of worked out. So we really felt like that the conversations and the justification for how it was going to connect back to standards, so that we're not just doing things because it's fun about another country, but it's really connected to the learning goals for that grade level. We also have had conversations with Valerie Green about globalizing the lunch menu. So once a month at New Hope and at Efland, they're working to do some global twists on
the lunch menu. It will be various continents throughout the world as we go through the year. I don't even know really what that's going to look like. I might be a little bit scared, but it's going to be okay. And then our teachers have just recently, like literally in the past week, gotten their logins from Participate so that they can access the online collections of resources that are available to them, and we will begin to implement the professional development that's required. My hopes are that we can get through at least 2 modules of PD this year, in addition to all of the other PD that's kind of slated. So I have kind of mapped out PD for the year, looking at what, you know, what's being offered from the district, but also looking at our global PD from Participate, which I think is super important. But our teachers are going to have a lot on their plate, but they're excited about it. These are 2 of the teachers, but there's a lot of excitement across the building, both for this program, but also for the globalization of the curriculum and kind of teaching our children to be global leaders. So you guys are always welcome to come and visit, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer those at this time to the best of our ability.
I don't think we have any more, but
Very
thank
nice.
you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
giving us a dual language program update.
And thanks for staying up late.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, we're gonna make a little change here. What change? Never mind. Okay.
Leave it alone.
All right, we'll leave it alone. All right, next up, please. Stanback Middle School Outdoor Learning Lab Project Presentation.
Staying on that theme of doing all we can for all students and learners, we have a project proposal before you this evening. Again, I want to commend Connie Crimmins, Director of the EC Program for the district, and Mr. Jeff Rockland, Principal A.L. Stanback, had an idea for an outdoor learning lab that they'll tell you the wonderful things. But before we've done any facility expansion, renovations, improvements, or other activities, they have requested assistance and review by our department to make sure that we were in agreement and compliant with all of our policies and regulations, and I think you'll find a very exciting project that we brought before you this evening.
So Jeff followed the rules.
He did.
Well.
Wow.
All
right.
Enjoy that, people. Just soak that in for once.
Let the minutes reflect.
Yes, please.
Yeah, put that one in the minutes.
So last year, Mr. Rockland and one of his teachers approached Patrick and I about this project about an outdoor learning lab to give students who are in one of our low incidence classroom settings a more richer outdoor experience. So this experience that we're talking about is targeted for students who are in a separate exceptional children's class. And before going into the actual project, I want to just give you all a little background on exceptional children's services and the classes that we're discussing, just to give you some more context. So when we talk about exceptional children's settings, we have regular, resource, and separate, and these are an amount of time that a student spends with a special education teacher pulled away from the general education classroom. In a regular and resource, those are the students you typically find in your most of the classrooms. When students' disabilities become more severe, we find them in a separate setting, where they are with a special education teacher and most likely a teacher assistant or 2. And in our separate classrooms, most likely the students have cognitive disabilities coupled with another impairment such as a sensory impairment, autism, or a physical disability. And typically our students in the separate setting classroom are instructed on the extended content standards, which is an offshoot of the standard course of study. So they've taken the standard course of study standards and taken out the most important piece of that, and that's what the students receive their instruction on. We have 5 classes at the elementary level, 2 at middle school, 3 at high school, and I did omit, we do have 2 at the pre-K level at all also. And the classrooms that we're targeting for this outdoor learning project are the 2 at A.L. Stanback. There are 17 students currently there, and we're going to show you some pictures of what we're envisioning. So typically, if you think of a playground or an outdoor learning lab, and what I sort of akin this to when Jeff approached me, is what's at the Museum of Life and Science. When you first go out the building, they have all of those sensory materials. But if you see here, these are ADA accessible. So the swing that is created so that a student with physical disabilities can be safely swung in it. You can see that the sand table, which Jeff reminded me we're not going to play with sand, we'll be having sensory items or something like that. But you can see it can be, students in wheelchairs can be pushed up to it. If you look at the garden space there, again, it's built such that a wheelchair can slide under that. Students who may be visually impaired, or even hearing impaired, the pots and pans there, I'm like trying to point to it. But that gives them, again, sensory, and then the one on the top is actually something that's tactile, so again, students can come up to that and feel. If you're talking about a seashell and you have a vision impairment, you can actually touch the shells and get an experience and make connections to the curriculum through something such as that.
So, I guess that's my part.
It's your turn.
There you go. So, you know, when asked on this, you know, they said, well, why are you doing this? It's, you know, really for us, our kids are always our why. And I think if I were to put this into any context, it's after lunch, our 6th graders will go out on a hill, and they have about 10, 15 minutes to go get some energy out, because they're 6th grade. And they're out there playing ball, and they're out there running, and soccer, and frisbee, and going up and down this hill with 3 tiers. And then our self-contained kids have time, and a lot of those kids can't access that hill. And what I have to give them to access is a track. And they can go around a track. And that's not all kids. I'm not giving them equal access to socialization, to working on fine motor skills, to activities that could help enhance their life as well. And so when we talked about this, you know, really for us, it's making sure that when we're talking about our kids are our why, it's all of our kids are our why. And we have so much space carved out at the middle school for football teams and basketball and softball, and we're looking for a small space for our kids of special needs that don't have access to any of that space. And so when we look at the benefits, and I'm going through quick for you, but you can go through slides there. So the benefits for our kids, some of the things we want to do is to partner with some of our community members. Yes, in terms of a fundraising sense for helping with this project. Part of it could be, if it's allowed, to also look at maybe businesses that could start to think, how could we help our students in the future for career-wise, and opportunities like the garden piece that you saw, that you could start using these learning labs as ways to develop them into careers, and giving them opportunities to be outdoors and doing those activities. The other piece is maybe looking at our Partnership Academy, which is right next door, and our kids coming over to examine the playground equipment, making sure that it's safe, working on landscaping, giving them an opportunity then as more of a service learning, coming back to the schools and helping out our students there as well. We have a Black Bear Club that meets every Friday, but those kids then could come out on other times to be working with the kids within the lab to give them opportunities to help. But in terms of, I think you would know all the research in terms of benefits of physical activity, of the types of structures that they were looking at, so I won't necessarily get into that, but I think you can kind of see how this opportunity can really be about all our kids at our school that we serve.
And one of the important things with the Black Bear Club, these are students who are in the general population who come and want to volunteer in the separate setting classroom. This learning lab, we're also thinking about how could it promote inclusion, how could it promote disability awareness, not in the, oh, this is a disability, but hey, oh, I've worked with Patrick, and Patrick, I didn't realize, had a prosthetic leg, never knew, but we just played together. Or working with students in a wheelchair, so developing empathy in our students without disabilities as well. So I think we've...
And I've talked to those,
yeah.
just time-wise, I knew
So again, we've hit on the benefits of students. I'll jump into the site selection, the site process. As Mr. Rockland described, this middle section in the screen is a slope tiered hill. It's not really suitable for a flat surface area. What we've identified is just adjacent to the rear of the school in this area here. There is a storage shed and there is an area that we would identify that could be readily accessible. A couple of things we wanted to do was, one, keep the site close to the main facility, but two, because of ADA accessibility, be able to bring the students through the school right onto the existing concrete pad basketball court and right off of that into the entrance of this playground. There is an access road that bypasses that would be outside of that zone, and we would have clear fence separation between it. But for accessibility purposes, this would already create that accessibility launching landing pad for us to be able to access the site. The site would follow all Consumer Product Safety Commission, other outdoor area protocols that we currently follow in the building. We would also use DPI standards, and Sarah Pitts, our Environmental Health and Safety Director, would be part of this project as well. It's really a collaborative that the school would like to do using additional funding cycles and funding streams. How much of it we could expand or we could do, but we would be able to provide within maintenance and site prep some early work just to assist with the project. And it's certainly up to the board if you would like to make this, even though we have our 10-year long-range capital investment plan, we fund a year at a time, but this certainly could be a priority of the board if, when we get into the capital investment planning, that you could, we could identify this being a project for us to consider, next year as well to assist. Still like the idea of the partnership and the funding coming in cycles with both local and business and other community partnerships, but it could be something that we could help assist with some facility expansion and renovations as well. As far as ongoing upkeep, we do 30-day inspections of all of our outdoor areas of our K-5 schools, etc. This would fall under our cycle for both making sure they're compliant and safe, and then that we're doing ongoing regular maintenance as required for these types of areas. Questions about the site location?
Yes, sir.
Just one question. Those are the two chiller units over there, is that correct?
Yes, sir, off to the left.
So you have plenty of room to get to those chiller units?
Yes, sir, we certainly do. And Mr. Ivy and myself, we walked the site several times. One of the things we've learned with site selection is you need to walk it on a sunny day and also on a day when there's 4 inches of rain, because you need that nice site might not look the same when rain comes. And right now it meets all of our criteria.
The only other question I have is this fire marshal is a very serious young man, and I would highly encourage you to talk to him because you don't want to start this project and he puts the kibosh on it. Because he had problems with people parking automobiles and trucks in that access road in the back.
Yes, sir.
But take him into consideration now and not have headaches later.
And this would also require
He's always
DPI's
willing to share his
approval.
thoughts with us.
Yes, he is.
Just a word of advice.
Around before I get it.
He's coming to my building.
This is just a rendering of possible types of play equipment, again, based on the funding and the phasing of this. We would phase this in of what we can do. We've not made a final decision on surfacing based on wheelchair accessibility, what type of playground it is, and the fall surfacing requirements. So that could be anything from a soft type of flooring, matting that goes out there, to our regular playground mulch in certain areas, and then some grass areas, because we want students to be able to sit and work on the ground and be able to move in that area as well with some tactile mobility. So we would have a separation fence, like I said, on this, and we would set the site around the current existing building. There is service areas there. We need to put lighting in and security as well to monitor this area. So we would include that within the project. We are not designated this as a public playground. We want this to be utilized for the special classrooms and the students at ALS. And so we are planning to control access to this to just the school. And by it being in its location, that'll help us do that as well.
Yeah. Well,
So, big fan. of this project. I think it's a wonderful idea. The only, I just had a couple questions, and I had probably a 45-minute conversation with Mr. Adderley about some of it, so he's answered a lot of my questions, but,
Thank God.
So this is the shortened list.
He's already answered some questions.
I don't know.
But we got 35 more
So-
minutes, go on.
So, just a couple of things, one is, I think we should consider opening this up to at least the kids in Orange County. And one of the thoughts I had was, the Hillsborough Police Department puts on a wonderful program every year, and they go to Gold Park, and they try to get some activities, and it's not that successful, and this one's really aimed at those kids. And I think if you partner with them, it's gonna gain awareness and support of this, and I agree, I'm not suggesting you open it up like rental and all that, but I do think it will serve a bigger purpose, because there isn't anything like this. The other one is, I think a good thing, and I did look in detail on the layout, I think a sign station would be wonderful. And what I mean by that is a lot of kids are nonverbal, and them to have that ability to flip and point, do you want to play? Yeah. Are you thirsty? More, please, all of those. I think a sign station in there will help out the nonverbals that are out there with kids that may be verbal, and they can point to that.
So a piece with that is like some of the equipment can be like a rotating panel as well. So that you have the posts throughout the year, you rotate them through, so that could be music at one point, more tactile.
But the picture schedule is more at enabling the kids to communicate with other kids when they're in there. So like I was saying, two kids that aren't familiar with each other, that gives them the opportunity. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mr. Adams, just a question on the follow-up one. Are you talking about Act 24/7 acts? Or are you talking about like event acts?
No, I'm just saying, hey, today we're gonna bring in the special needs kids, and we're gonna have an event for Orange County schools, or we're gonna have a school come over.
With local agents.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely don't believe in opening this up. It is designed for these kids with special needs, and I think it should be used as such. It's all it's good.
Hillary's got something.
I just want to say I think it's a beautiful project. It does my heart good to see you guys thinking about all the kids there. And outside of my board capacity, I'd be delighted to volunteer and help you guys.
Thank you.
I would as well.
Fantastic.
Do we have any additional?
Just tonight is obviously not an action item. It's more of like a thumbs up, go forth, and
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Rockland, go straight home now.
Yes. I had my wife come, are you serious? I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Y'all have a good night.
All right, so next we have the Orange High School Engineering and Design Academy. Please come forward.
Probably.
Don't say that.
Can we turn the air down?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, turn it down.
I'm like,
It's like the night's getting cold, it's warm, and we're going to sleep.
They're putting us in a comatose state.
Right.
It's an old trick to get the meeting going.
I know,
Yeah. Right, so, yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. We are excited to be here with you again. I'm going to learn a little bit about a proposal from Orange High School with regards to an Orange Engineering and Design Academy. Mr. Eric Yarborough.
So good evening. Thank you for letting me come and present tonight. So I am really presenting on something that I'll give you a little background, but it's not anything I say newish. It's something that we have had. We just want to put a new twist on it, and I'll tell you a little bit about why as we go through. Happy to have Mr. Eric McBurnett with us, who is, you probably know, Teacher of the Year at A.L. Stanback, and now is a new staff member. Staff member completed his first day at Orange High School, which we are super excited about. So that after Mr. Rockman leaves. And of course, Patricia Harris, Director of CTE, is with us as well. So just so you know a little bit of background, we have had Project Lead the Way at Orange High School since the 2007-2008 school year. Project Lead the Way empowers students to develop and apply in-demand transferable skills by exploring real-world challenges. Students not only learn technical skills, but also learn problem solving, think critically, and creatively, communicate, and collaborate. At Orange High School, we offer 4 Project Lead the Way courses, Intro to Engineering, Principles of Engineering, Digital Electronics, and a capstone design and development course. I will say over the past 2 years that I've been at Orange, I've been a little disappointed to see the number of students that go all the way through all 4 courses and take the capstone course, which if you come and ever see when they actually show their projects that they have designed and developed and taken them all the way through that process, it's some amazing stuff that our students are able to do. We just haven't seen as many kind of go all the way through. So in looking at that idea of how can we see students get all the way through that course and really dive into engineering with our Project Lead the Way courses, kind of got us to this academy approach. So you can see career academies are designed to prepare students for both college and careers. They link students with peers, teachers, community partners in a structured environment that fosters academic success. So several Orange High School staff members, Ms. Harris, have visited Apex Friendship High School's Academy of Engineering to learn more about their academy. We plan to continue this partnership as we move forward, and we're very thankful for their willingness to share with us. But it's been really great to learn about what they do. So why an engineering and design academy? The academy will develop future leaders that makes a global difference to fill skills gaps and develop a talent pipeline. Most importantly, what it'll do though is it'll combine our Project Lead the Way courses with our core classes. So students that will, instead of learning math and science, they will learn math and science through a design process as well. And so we're just trying to create interdisciplinary units where it's not just that they learn, because a student may have Project Lead the Way course, let's say Intro to Engineering, in the fall and have no engineering class obviously in the spring. And so how do we kind of continue to bridge that gap and keep engineering as a focus throughout? And so it would be by creating more interdisciplinary units to make the learning more relevant for our students. We feel like the academy would also continue the problem-based learning in the STEM that is offered at Central Elementary currently and Stanford Middle. All of our courses, core courses and Project Lead the Way courses, will focus on problem-based learning through the engineering design process. You can see the engineering design process there. So an overview, the academy would begin in 2018-19 with 55 rising freshmen. It would be a 4-year program, and students, importantly, would be in a cohort model for Project Lead the Way and core classes. So they would be in those classes with their cohort peers to the best of our ability. Sometimes scheduling with some of their other courses they would want to take would come in the way, but to the best of our ability. All core engineering courses would embed the engineering design process into the curriculum and the instruction. The core engineering classes, just so you know that, some students who are not in the academy will still be able to take Project Lead the Way courses. So it does not exclude anybody. We would just have our academy students and then other students from there. Students will have to complete job shadowing and 135-hour minimum work internship during their 4 years. Most of it, from what we've learned from Apex Friendship, has been done during their junior year or their summer between their junior and senior year. So you can see there just course sequence, and you can see the there in period, where we say period 5, it would be the engineering classes. You can see how that would kind of filter in. Obviously with math, some students are coming in at different places based on what their middle school math would be. So that would, we would group those kids. So there might be, 8 kids in Math Honors 2 as a freshman. So those kids would be grouped together, but it would be all of their cohort. So obviously it'd be 8 kids, which would leave maybe 20 other kids who were 9. But the teacher would have gotten problem-based learning strategies and to use in the classroom. In yellow, you can see we currently offer digital electronics there. We feel like it's probably time for a change. And so we want to move to aerospace or civil engineering. And that would be done by talking with our students and surveying our students, and also talking with the CT advisory board about which way we would want to go, whether it be civil or aerospace. But that's a change we would like to make. Other elective options: Intro to Computer Science, Microsoft Gaming and Design, AP Computer Science Principles, AP Computer Science, the Java course, Interior Design, Visual Art, public speaking, and then our college and career promise course options at Durham Tech would be elective options that you can see if you go back on the slide before, where there's a lot of student choice that's left. Students would have the opportunity to pick those courses. Application process, applications would be live in December and January. It would be only for Orange High School District students at this time. No academics barriers to acceptance. We kind of went back and forth a lot with this, and really through the guidance we got with Apex, felt like we did not want to limit any student based on where they were through their middle school time. And so Academy student population, we would love it to represent the Orange High School population. We certainly would love to actively recruit females and minorities into this program. Applications will include student written statements concerning perseverance and career goals, and also 2 teacher recommendations.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If you don't want there to be any academic barriers to acceptance, I'm just curious about getting 2 teacher recommendations and how that might hold some people's back, and just a thought behind that.
I can speak to that. As a middle school teacher, there were many engineering students I had that might not have been as academically, forward as some of their peers, but I really saw aptitude when I set them in that problem-based learning. And I know that a lot of other teachers saw the same thing. So while they might not be in Math 1 in 8th grade, I don't think that the students that are interested in this, that see that drive toward being an engineer, I don't think they're really be in trouble getting a couple teachers to say, yeah, I think this would be something great you want to do.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I think we saw, that's a very fair and valid question, because historically teacher recommendations could be an obstacle. I think the team at Orange has looked at this on the other side of that, that a teacher may actually encourage a student that otherwise maybe on the fence.
Yeah, and I'm sure middle school teachers are fantastic and will have their eye open for
really
kids
valid
that
question.
are well suited for it, but just wanted to ask. Thanks.
Before we get off the slide, one, I like everything about this, but push it a little further. Why would we not want this to be similar to our IB program that we have at Cedar Ridge, that we open it up to the entire county so that we have this could be competitive. This could be like what we got at New Hope, where we've got a waiting list wanting to go into that. And so I'm just throwing it out for the discussion.
I'm happy to speak to that. That is certainly the desire of Mr. Yarborough and the staff at Orange High. Our choice to have it open to all high school students in the district. Our choice window process really starts for the 1920 school year in about 2 months. And I think some of our collective experience around choice programs says that recruiting external your audience is often more effective when you have a product to actually show them. So I think that is our goal. And I think for the 1920 school year, we saw it as let's get it up and running with Orange High School students, and then we would have time to have the application process, the lottery process, all of that worked out to be able to open it up. Good. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. Mr. Yarborough, how many sections of AP Physics do you currently have?
Currently have 1.
1. So you're trying to
Actually
expand.
grown, and numbers have grown.
Historically, physics classes in high schools in North Carolina have not been dramatically large. They've been small. And people have been scratching their heads to try to increase that significantly over the years. So is this one thrust to try to bring those numbers up in physics?
I mean, I think to some extent it is. It also, I will say, we have a new AP Physics teacher who started 2 years ago. The program, I think her first year, somewhere between 8 and 10, was in her classroom today. She has 19 enrolled.
Great.
So we're moving in that, and she was actually going to try to be here tonight, but could not. But I think she will probably teach our Earth and Environmental Science classes for this, so those students will see her as a freshman, and we will hope that they come back around.
Because if you're able to pull this off, I think what Mr. Roberts was talking a minute ago, this will challenge the IB program at Cedar Ridge. That's my opinion.
I agree.
You're gonna have to grow those AP Physics numbers.
Right.
It's exciting.
Sarah. There you go.
What are you gonna do to actively recruit females and people of color?
Yeah,
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a challenge. Let's get in #1, it's gonna be a challenge. I think that we do have Miss Cecilia Mila, who is one of our AP computer science teachers, who is a minority female, and I think she will help us to do that by being somebody that the kids see every day, and to recruit that and have her going out. I think that it helps that we have somebody like Eric who knows middle school and has a really good relationship with our middle school Project Lead the Way teachers, and can go out and knows some of the kids already, but then also knows a really good relationship with those teachers, who we can say, hey, we really want to focus on, see who some of these kids are that really show potential, so that we can go out and meet with them individually, and meet with their families, and say, hey, this is a great opportunity. But I think it's great that we can look at somebody like Miss Mila and say, here's somebody who has been there. And I think that was a big part when she interviewed with us, that she talked about, like, she has a really big desire. Was in her AP Computer Science Principles class, and I think there was 16 kids in there with one female. And so she looked at me and she was like, we got to fix this. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So it's going to be difficult, and I don't know that I have all the exact answers on that, but I mean, I think the biggest thing will be identifying those kids who want to do it, and then showing them that there's a way, and getting to know them.
Can I respond to that too? I mean, I think part of that too is Eric and his team further fleshing out really the attributes, right, of a student that, what we're looking for, kind of what Eric was saying, right? Not a criteria, but what are some of the attributes that we look for in a student that would prove them to be successful in this kind of environment? And then spending time with middle school teachers and saying, you have kids like this in your classroom, right? Who are they? And help us identify those, and then it just becomes really personal work at that point.
Aside from Ms. Mila, do you have other teachers in the program that are female and minority representation?
So female, yes, minority, not so much right now.
Okay.
Like I'm AP physics teacher, Ms. Gardner, female, but I think that would be great to have, whether it be core or Project Lead the Way teachers, have teachers that do look like the students that we're trying to recruit. I think it's very important for us.
Make people feel comfortable.
We've got some ideas on who some of those folks are.
Great.
Ms. Gardner, I know, will be one. She's all in, and so we're working, and that's all you'll get to our timeline.
Not that problem is unique to this program, just wanted to throw that out there.
Will?
Thank you.
So big fan of this, obviously, but I'm very biased. A couple of questions I had was, I know that to everybody's point about recruiting, going recruiting across the board. Have y'all thought about where we did engineering week, like we did at Stanford, and we had parents come in that are in the field and they actually talk to the kids about what they do, and then you slip in, by the way, we have this program, right? And I think that's a good way to hook, where they see actual people that are in the career. The second one, or second question or thing I had is, looking at the course sequence, is there any extracurricular activity that gets booted because of this, like band or maths, or because that's a big deal to a lot of kids, right? And I think they should know going into it, kind of an FAQ, hey, be aware that your first year as a freshman, you may be able to do this, but your second year you won't, or just to set the expectation, because I know from my experience that's a big deal.
Yeah. I know that when we talked about with Apex Friendship, they did not, and so they have, it is asked on their application, are you in the band, are you in marching band, and it says on there, this is not used for selection purposes, just so we know, because it does make the scheduling piece a little more difficult. So I think the answer to that is, I think that we can work around it.
Oh, okay.
It may be a little more difficult to get those kids in that exact cohort, and so we'll just have to figure out how that. I mean, a lot of it will be which math class are they? Each kid will be a little bit different, but our hope is to work around that.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Yeah.
And the reality is that, to steal an attorney phrase, it depends, right? I mean,
that attorney's
the reality
phrase.
is students that are full-blown band students often are choosing that over other things in their career, or an ag student is choosing that over potentially other things in their career. I think to Eric's point, the cohort might not be quite as clean, but there's options there to have a student still as a part of this program. But it will depend.
Our goal is certainly to not, we do not want to exclude kids who want to be part of it. But it may be that we have to sit down and have some discussions with the families at that point. We just can't make it work.
Yeah, I the only point is, if we know that based off of the course sequence that this program, if you're in it, it's not gonna work, that we let them know ahead, right? So they don't get their hopes up and then try to set up, MADS and then find out, oh, I can't do MADS, wow, that was my thought. So,
Yep.
Okay.
So just post-secondary options, College and Career Promise Open, which is open to our juniors and seniors, where Academy students will be able to start taking Associates of Engineering degree courses at Durham Tech or other university transfer programs. The Associates Engineering degree courses do transfer smoothly into our some of our local engineering four-year programs. And then also using the North Carolina Triangle Apprenticeship Program model with collaboration with Durham Tech, if possible in future apprenticeships. Just a little bit about some of the concepts. A lot of these would overlap, but these would be focus points each year. Ninth grade, we'd start out team building, exposing students to the engineering design process, project-based learning, career explorations. Each CTE always has monthly focuses on soft skills. Freshmen would be time management, organizational skills, and communication skills. 10th grade concept, global issues, job shadowing, soft skills would be presentation skills, resume writing, and interview skills. 11th grade, exploring post-secondary options, mentorships, and internships, and then the soft skills would be critical thinking, leadership skills, and professionalism. And then 12th grade, creativity and innovation, which would mostly be done through their design and development course, planning for the future, transition to college and career, and then continuing with those internships and mentorships that have been established. Benefits of the program, we feel like interpersonal skills will improve over time, exposure to real-world problem-based learning, real-world application in all classes, career exploration, interdisciplinary approach, exposure to rigorous curriculum that, if you don't know, Project Lead the Way is, students do get weighted on their GPA. It counts the same way as AP courses. Internship experience, and then better prepare for college and career. And you can see a tentative timeline, determine our core teacher team, which will be in recruiting some of those teachers from math, science, social studies, and English to be on that team. Market to rising ninth graders and parents, which Eric will do a lot of with our middle schools. Go live with the online application December, February, coordinate with the normal high school registration timeline, and then March, students will know what courses to register for as a ninth grader. April, team meeting with parents and students, and then summer, we will do some professional development with our academy teacher team, especially those core teachers. We've looked at some courses that are offered through NC State, and then also through NCAT, which is the North Carolina Advancement of Teaching, offers some problem-based learning workshops. And then in August, we would do an orientation with our first group of students to do team building with the academy students and introduction with the engineering team process. And I circled and wrote down Aaron Dennison's name as somebody I need to contact from, because I had not thought about contact. I think we mentioned it one time in one of our meetings, but I need to reach out to her about doing some conversations with guys at Eric, since some conversations with her. So bringing her to work with some of our non-Project Lead the Way teachers. So, questions?
Do we have any more questions for the team?
Just one other question. So obviously we haven't seen the marketing material, but is the intent to say, here's this wonderful program and you can go to Durham Tech, or you can go to NC State, or, how's it being, what's y'all's approach to what student and what their career path would be if they went through the program? I would hate that people would think, hey, I'm gonna take this and my plan is to only go on college, because there's wonderful skills in here where you could go into other areas, so.
That's actually the model from the NC TAP, which is the apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. So if we are connected with, say, 5 businesses around us who would support those apprenticeships, then that's that's a student that probably won't go possibly to, so there's several, those three options you saw in that post-secondary, actually the NC TAP model would also be that option for the pathway of students who may not want to go to a four-year college, you know, so we definitely have left all of those options open for the academy students, no matter who's in the academy.
I just think it's very important
Yes.
that we sell it that way, that it's not just, this is a college
Right, yeah.
launch pad, this is an open path that you could go to any of these. Some of the best designers I've worked with had no college degree.
Yeah.
And it was just, they have the, you know, innate skills, and that, it's very important.
And that's our goal too.
Dr. H. and Tony?
Well, I just want to make one observation. I'm supportive of the idea of the way you guys have presented it. But I have my little card in my pocket with my 5 long-range planning areas that I already gave to Patricia today. And CTE opportunities was off that list, and I had it down here. And the only danger I see in a lot of this is we start developing things, a piece here, a piece there, a piece there. I think we need to have that big CTE discussion that we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
We need to figure out how to bring that together as a mass and talk about it. Because people are working hard, coming up with creative stuff, I like this, but I think we need to have an overall skeletal structure of where we want to put an arm here, a leg there, a head there, and ear there. And this is good stuff.
Absolutely.
But then we need to figure out how to be supportive as a system. We've been talking about apprenticeships for 11 and a half years, right? So it's nice to see apprenticeships mentioned, but all this stuff has been bubbling on the surface. It's about time to capture it and put it in a form of a body.
And then that's all I was gonna say is, you know, in regards to what you were saying, is bringing those employers that actually have an interest together in order to form that relationship and get those, create those opportunities for those students.
Absolutely.
So we are gathering some information to be able to have that conversation with you all at this point in time, some data about where we are, some structures about what we're thinking about doing as we're moving forward, as well as some information about the business advisory group, which is already in place, and they have a vision as to where they want to go as well, and how we think about how we frame that as we're moving forward. So,
Yes, sir.
And I think it'd be helpful if we could get some minutes of what's actually being discussed by the business advisory group. I'd like to know what they're saying. I hope somebody else would on this board.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I
yes,
think it's
I would as
critically
well.
important that we
Patricia,
find out what they're
you want
talking
to add
about.
something to what he said?
I was just gonna say, they actually are hoping to, present to the school board, that's part of their.
Oh, good, good.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
that's great.
Super.
so that they'll be a part of the conversation that we have.
Well, we eagerly anticipate that presentation.
Yeah,
Yes.
the last thing I just want to mention is hopefully you'll see the passion of the board about this area. We are all want to grow it, we want it to be more successful, and we want to see it just be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick. You know, one of the first people I ever met in Orange County when I worked in other systems was Patricia Harris. She's always incredibly kind to me, and I enjoyed interacting with her outside of the system. This will be Patricia's last board meeting with us, and I thought it was important to be able to contain your excitement.
You're right.
For somebody that has given a lion's share of their life to our system and the people here, and her work ethic, the time, the behind the scenes, the do whatever it takes, whether it's, you know, serve drinks at a banquet or help MC a livestock show or, you know, whatever it may be. She's always done it, never asked for credit, never asked to be out front. She's a champion for our teachers and our kids, and I appreciate all you've done for us.
Well, yeah. You're gonna find something else to do with your late nights. Yes. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think they can do this next thing?
Yes,
By
ma'am.
10 o'clock? Not both of them. One of them.
I would,
All right, so, board members, you know, we end our meetings at 10 o'clock. And it's doubtful that, we know Patrick can't get it done in 5 minutes.
No.
And so, I would like to suggest that we put these two items at the top of the next agenda.
Good.
If I could get a motion.
I make the motion.
Second.
Now, is this a motion to
Motion to
adjourn?
add it,
Okay.
motion to add to
Oh,
the
I don't
next
need-
meeting.
Okay, fine. All right, so are you all?
We don't think we could get the Wi-Fi one.
No, we cannot.
No
He said,
way.
I asked the
Will's in here.
superintendent already.
All right, all right.
All right, so, any further discussion besides Sarah's? All right, all in favor of the motion, let me know by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All right. So noted. We
I knew you were gonna have a lot of questions, Will.
I